Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, to the Clone Boys podcast. It's so
Ooh.
crazy. This is episode 8. Yeah, this is man, we finished the last one, and that was a episode.
Ugh.
R3. We had droids fighting each other, and bad animation, and really bad plot, but it's okay because we're next. This one is what? Kyle, what's the name of the arc? Kyle, the name.
I guess it's the Newt Gunray
The Newt
arc, but
Gunray arc. I remembered that. This is the arc about Newt Gunray.
Whoa!
I don't know why I sound so dead inside. Oh, I remember
it's the
now. I
first
just looked
episode we're
at
talking
the
about.
first episode, Bombad Jedi. It's the one. It's the one. We'll just get into it. So
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah,
one and
welcome
all,
everybody.
I guarantee.
to the second Jar Jar episode.
Yes, I guarantee that the mood will shift. It will get more positive, but for now
I
it will be
swear.
quite not fun. So let's just start. Title card: Heroes are made by the times. I see what they were going for, but also
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I want to call Jar Jar a hero.
He
No.
pretends to be a Jedi, I guess.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, we'll just keep going. I wrote down the announcer. The little narration. The Clone War threatens the unity of the Republic. As battles rage across the galaxy, more worlds succumb to the seductive lure of the Separatists and leave the Republic. On a vital mission of peace, Senator Padme Amidala journeys to the outer rim world of Rhodia, desperate to ensure its loyalty remains to the Republic. So, just to give a little preamble, so my first watch through of this episode in prep, like where I watched it and then I watched it again to start taking notes. I did that immediately after I had finished my prep work for the second episode of the R3 arc. And I
Ugh.
thought to myself, I was like, oh man, R3, that made me so miserable. At least I don't have to take notes on this just yet. I'll just watch it. And I was even more miserable. But, that
Man.
said, I do want to discuss the things that make me dislike this episode, right? I mean, I don't want to waste too much time even going forward. I don't want to waste a whole lot of time going through the intricacies of each episode, like, every single fight, talking about the plot armor of the blasters and stuff, because I think we're far enough along that it's pretty clear that there's going to be some plot armor here and there, right? They're not putting a whole lot of effort. I will point out when it's good, but because I mean it is good in one
Mhm.
of these episodes, so yeah, we'll talk about it there. But yeah, I don't want to just thoroughly dissect every beat of every episode. So yeah, I mainly said that because I didn't want to dissect everything to do with Jar Jar, but I still did quite a bit of that anyways. So we'll continue. Um, Rhodia, that's what was mentioned.
Yeah.
I didn't send the image to our group chat. I'll try that right now.
Here's hoping to your Wi-Fi not dying.
My Wi-Fi, it's in the red. Well, it seems to be going
Yeah,
through
of course.
fairly quick, but I'll just explain where everything
I
is.
know
What
I know Greedo is a Rhodian.
He
he
sure
is.
is.
This is the planet of the Greedo people. Are they just the Rhodians?
We sure love the Garrido people. Yeah, they're called Rhodians.
Oh, it's all the way out there. Like
Yeah,
Christophsis and Tatooine.
yeah, it's right there. Right next to Tatooine, actually. But that's the planet of the Jar Jar, not the Jar Jar, the Greedo people. That Naboo is the
Jar
planet of
Jar
the Jar
people.
Jar people. Um,
Man,
hmm,
Big Boss Nass would have your head for such heresy.
I know, it's so sad. Well, starting off, Palpatine and Padme, they're talking because they're on their way to Rhodia. Palpatine is just like, "Why are you so far away? Why don't you have any clones with you?" And she tells him that Senator Farr personally requested her presence. do you find it funny that, they're talking about how far away she is, and she's like, "Oh yeah, Senator Farr. He requested my presence." And I think I
Senator.
understand why they did that because of the naming convention of these episodes. And yes,
It,
this is a Jar Jar Binks episode.
it sure is.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's been like a week since I did my prep for this episode, so seeing just Jar Jar in the background, that's I had an auditory reaction to that. Uh
Oh, love.
hmm. Well, Jar Jar, because Palpatine is like, "Why don't you have a clone escort?" He attempts to reason with Palpatine, and he's just like, "There is nothing to worry about." And even while he does it, he smacks, or he doesn't smack, he like pushes C3PO's chair to spin him. And he's like, "There's nothing to worry about because I'm from Naboo." And he can't finish what he's saying because C3PO spins around and kicks him in the back of the legs. And because like he spun and he just smacks him. And this causes Jar Jar to lose his balance. Oh, geez, the motion blur on that. He loses his balance and falls onto the machine panel, and his
Which
hand hits a
causes
button.
them, causes them to send missiles to the planet's surface, destroying the planet in its
Oh man,
entirety.
that'd be really funny. But instead, it causes. I don't really know what it is. The ship starts to shake, so I assume and it starts to list downwards. I think that's the correct terminology. But I'm
Yeah,
assuming that this means that he turned off the autopilot.
most likely.
So let's just already, it's been like 1 minute of screen time, but we're gonna break down the stupidity of this scene.
Oh boy, I can't wait.
I know. Let's just move it to there. That's a good image. Um, so Jar Jar, the whole idea is that he's clumsy. He spins C3PO in a chair, which he didn't expect would hit him in the back of the leg, which he didn't expect would make him fall forward and turn off the autopilot. Now, I can live with just the idea that Jar Jar is clumsy, but I have much bigger criticisms for this moment. Because first off, I guess it's fine that C3PO is able to sit down. I wasn't sure about that at first, but I've alleviated that criticism. I know that they can sit down, but why would C3PO be sitting down? Like
He's
he's
driving the ship, obviously.
yeah, I mean he's kind of in the back, but like I just figured that whenever he's not doing the things that he needs to do, he's like hooked up to a battery or something. I don't know
Hmm.
enough about 3PO units, but I don't see why him sitting in this room is in any way helping Padme, and that's like his express purpose.
Well, let's. In defense, I'm gonna assume that Padme isn't just gonna turn him off when he's not needed. That's a little mean.
Yeah, but I mean there are spots where he could. I mean, have you ever seen? Oh, I don't think you've seen Futurama.
I have not.
There's a great episode where Bender and Fry are trying to get an apartment, and Bender's a robot and Fry's a human, and they want an apartment so that they could just hang out together. Bender, since he's a robot, he he only needs the size of a closet because all he does whenever he's not with anyone is just kind of stand around in like low power mode.
Well, ambushed. Good night.
Wait, Bender? Bender?
Just thinking about how that works with 3PO units, I don't really understand. Again, like it's fine that C3PO is sitting in a chair. I don't really care, but the fact that it's related to this turn of events gets me thinking about that. Because the next part is why is it that when C3PO bumps him in the back of the legs, Jar Jar falls forward? Because he's bumped in a way that compromises his balance from behind.
Right.
Next, why is there a button that turns off the autopilot that is not within immediate reach of the main pilot?
Who knows?
Because he falls over a panel and he pushes a button on the opposite side of Padme, and Padme is the pilot, so it's like my cruise control is on the steering wheel right next to where my hand is. So it's like I literally barely move my thumb and I can turn on the cruise. Why does Padme have to not only take her hands off of the controls, off of the steering, but reach across a panel to turn off to turn on and off the autopilot? I just find that really weird.
I will say this. Are we looking way too much into this right now? I think the answer.
I'm doing this intentionally, yes.
Okay. I was
Yes.
because I'm like, what is happening right now?
Yeah.
Here,
I'm
2
going
seconds.
very deep into this 1 minute of this is to point something else out.
I see. Gotcha.
The whole point of me going off on this spiel is all of these events were set up, all of these semi-questionable events were set up all for the sake of Jar Jar did a clumsy. And that's the entire episode. I just find it really weird that... I mean, the whole point of Jar Jar is that he's a well-meaning and clumsy individual, but he ends up causing more damage than good generally. But as far as this comedy goes, how can you blame Jar Jar for what is ultimately, like, the big thing that Jar Jar did that was so clumsy isn't even rooted in the fact that Jar Jar did a clumsy. It's rooted in a design flaw of the ship.
Right.
Or the
I-
fact
I
that, like, he lost balance in a way that I don't even think he could really control. It's just... It's things like that. I'm not a big fan of that. I feel like that's just a staple of lazy writing. But yeah, that's
So
essentially my entire spiel on Jar Jar. We can move on from there. But
So the take is, man, Jar Jar episodes are whack.
pretty much, yeah.
God.
Ooh.
I'm sorry if I'm not saying a lot. I just don't have. I'm in this like ether where, I can't figure out how to get like articulate my thoughts,
Mhm.
and I also like this episode makes me feel absolutely nothing inside.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't have any emotions to give here. So
Yeah,
I'm sorry
I
if I'm
hold-
quiet. I'm like my thoughts are like trying to articulate themselves into coherent thoughts, but it's not working.
That is
You're
a
good.
fair reaction to have to a Jar Jar episode.
But moving
then we-
on, Padme is just like, all right, Jar Jar. Yeah, they get on the planet, and Padme is just like, look, C-3PO, you need to watch him, right? So just don't come here. Don't come with me. And she leaves, and she meets. She calls him Uncle Ano. Isn't his name like Anoconda?
It is on a
Yeah, like Anaconda.
Okay,
Oh.
Anoconda.
I have a Lego figure of this guy.
Oh,
Oh, do you?
interesting.
Yeah, because I
unique.
think he came with the. I used to have, when I was a kid, I had the Separatist shuttle,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh,
I think
yeah.
it came with Newt Gunray and that guy.
Oh.
Okay,
Okay.
cool.
Here, let me look up.
But I always used him as Greedo because
Yeah,
Why
he
wouldn't you do
does
that?
look quite a bit like Greedo. But yeah, they engage in some not so subtle exposition, where Padme is just like, "Hey, you're very important to me. We've been friends since I was a little girl, and you were my father's strongest ally in the Senate, right?" And she even continues, she's like, "Rhodia is very important to the Republic, so of course I'm gonna help you." But then Ano responds with just like, "Oh yeah, I wrote this verbatim. You speak of friendship. I have not witnessed of late. Where was the Republic when our supply ships were destroyed by pirates? Where was the Republic as my people starved?" That's like, it feels like they're talking at the audience, not at each other.
Right.
Or sorry, they're talking to the audience, not to each other. They're just talking at each other, explaining information they should both know. So it's like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of weird.
Whatever you say.
I think it's even funnier when dialogue like this, because bad dialogue like that happens all the time in narratives, but I find it even funnier when the writers even point it out when, someone says information they both know and the other one is just like, yeah, we both know this.
I think there was a video essay I saw that says the worst way you can ever start a dialogue sequence is saying "as you know,"
As you
because
know.
now why are you saying it?
Yeah,
They
if you
you
know,
both
then you
know
shouldn't have to be told. Yeah.
exactly.
The only time where I'd say that is good would probably be if someone's talking down to another person. Where like as you
Mhm.
know, meaning not as you actually know, but as you should know, and you've messed up for you know not knowing or not remembering.
Mhm. Yeah,
But that's
I,
still kind of rare.
I think
that is
the
a
thing
nuance you have to have with saying that. You were saying, Kyle? Sorry, I kind
the
of cut
thing
you off.
I'm used to hearing it is like whenever you do like you have like a mission briefing like scene in
Hmm.
like a TV or movie, and they're like, as you know, we have a situation, and then they explain the situation.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
if even if you don't explain it super thoroughly and you just provide enough details for the audience to get it, I feel like that even goes further in I guess immersing the audience, because the audience is just like, "Oh, yeah, this is just every day for them." So, of course they don't need to talk to each other about this.
Hmm.
It reminds me of like Aliens. Oh man, the the um the guys in Aliens are really good. Just the way that that was very poorly structured of a sentence, but the
Game over, man. Game
yeah, the
over.
Marines, they definitely hold, like, not only is this their job that they do all the time, so of course they know how to get things done. They have relationships with each other, right? They take the we already know this, so we're not going to explain it very well to the audience, and they push it further to, instead of that, we're going to explain the relationships of the characters to the audience, because that's what the story's about. It's not about what's going on in the world, it's what's going on with the characters.
Right. I like that. I need to watch those movies.
Those are good movies, yeah.
I have not seen Aliens.
Oh, Kyle, we need to watch that. It's a great one.
I have Alien, but I have not
Hmm.
seen Aliens
They're both
plural.
very good. And then don't watch anything else.
And I know that part. I know that part. Don't watch anything
It's like
else.
Terminator. Just watch
Because
the
I
first
kind
two
of
and never again.
yeah,
Hey,
I've looked up what the other ones are about, but I've left number two like spoiler free. But I've looked up the other ones and I'm like, what the actual heck?
I'm not gonna lie, I
I
liked parts of Alien 3, but that's other than that, I don't think I liked anything about the sequels.
I actually also need to watch the Terminator movies. I have not
Those are
seen them
good
yet,
too. Yeah,
and
first
I know
two,
I
really
should
good.
because I know they're really good.
Daniel, I'm with you. I haven't seen one or two.
I need
What?
to watch them. Like I know
Oh
they're good and
no,
everything.
we need to watch them.
Like I know they're great, right? I just have
After
not
you
gone.
watch Godzilla.
Yes, Godzilla would be fun too. Anyways, we'll move
But
on with the discussion. The main point being the dialogue here is fairly weak. Um, but
yeah,
Padme,
it's a
she's
long
trying
time.
to bargain with Anno. She's like, the vote with the for the Rhodians, it was postponed. I don't know if we explained the stakes. The stakes are the Rhodians are starving because pirates were stealing from them. So now they're in trouble, and the Republic is not really doing a lot because they're they're facing a war, so they're moving different things involving management back. So the Rhodians, the vote to help them was postponed. But she's like, we can definitely do something. I'll move the vote up. But this is when Anno reveals that he's already in league with Newt Gunray and the Separatists. And that's when 9 battle droids show up and they surround Padme.
Oh no!
Yeah, I know, it's
What
so
will
sad.
our hero do?
Newt Gunray, that guy from episode 1.
Man, that's crazy.
Yes. Oh yeah, and then Padme immediately tries to contact C-3PO. Like she pulls out her comms and she's like, C-3PO, there's droids. But obviously the comm link gets destroyed by the droids. Like that was just a dumb decision of her right then and there, unless she expected them to take her comm link, which maybe they expected because of the movie. That could be something, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
just like
we
she's
made the mistake
surrounded.
of
They are literally a twitch away from accidentally killing her, And her doing something like this is just asking them to twitch their finger.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
You
And
got
this is to
chosen.
robots with faulty programming, so it's like, oh no, that was dumb.
Yeah. They've
Yeah.
learned to take away her comlink after the movie. They've made the mistake of letting her have it in her jail cell. That was really dumb. Anyway.
Yeah, so, Ano says he had no choice, right? He's oh yeah, there's like a Newt Gunray shows up on a hologram and he's like, take her away, and Ano's just like, I'm sorry, I had no choice, and Padme's just like, there's always a choice. To live in fear is no life at all. Which,
Wow.
that is a perspective. But, as we hear literally seconds later, Gunray says, I will be there within the hour to bring food for your people and collect my prize. So, ignoring the word prize, it sounds like Ano made a really good decision, right? I mean, this is going to get him food for his people. Like, I feel like the fear of living under a regime that isn't very nice is a little bit better than living under the fear of starving tonight.
I would take that argument.
Which, there is a perspective there, because I know some people would rather starve to death than live under communism. Personally, I think I'd rather live under communism than starve to death.
I don't know. I'm not really clear on that.
I think
really
there's I think there's enough
I would
there
need a lot
to
more time to
say,
think about that.
well, the fact that Padme says there's always a choice, to live in fear is no life at all. She holds a very strong perspective one way, and I think all I'm trying to say is that there is another perspective and people can have it. Yeah, ignoring the word
right.
prize, it does seem like Newt Gunray is here to help, and he's like, Ano is just trying to help his people. Back with Jar Jar and C-3PO, the wildlife. They're apparently saying mean things, and C-3PO is just like, I don't dare to repeat it. And oh man, here's the next thing that I don't think people really understand. So the battle droids show up, and Jar Jar just books it. He gets in the ship and he turns off the landing gear, or like the ramp, and it starts to close, and C-3PO is just like, wait for me.
Mans was about to dip on this whole planet.
He ends up trying to help C-3PO, and because C-3PO is just like, oh man, we're gonna, I'm stuck here. So instead of lowering the ramp again, he just runs over to the edge and he attempts to lift C-3PO in. As far as characterization goes, that again, like, now I'm like, okay, Jar Jar is, he's now so clumsy to a self-detrimental extent, he's going to die without even realizing that he's going to get crushed by this thing. Yeah.
I kind of forgot how terrible this episode was.
That's why I'm really not saying anything. I'm like, there's not much to argue here. This is a bad episode.
I don't feel like I need to explain why all of this is,
It's just wacky.
Yeah, it's essentially more of what I was just saying at the start of the episode. Like,
if this was a Looney Tunes cartoon, I'd be like, okay, this makes sense. Because nothing absolutely makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the universe is built out, it's just... And I know they're trying to introduce some comedy into it. Comedy's been a part of Star Wars since... But it's been more verbal comedy. Because, 3PO and R2 are just kind of funny. But...
I'm thinking of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That is a extremely well animated movie, but it's also like the story, it tracks, and the characters, everything that they do is in character, and the comedy is never mean-spirited to anyone, and it's never just this zany, wacky, just, whoa, we tripped on a thing. Whenever it is, that's like a very small moment where it's like, all right, that happened, let's... they acknowledge, all right, that was kind of awkward. That's not usually what happens, so we'll move on. So the next scene is with Padme. She's getting cuffed, right? She's being placed in the cell. So Padme, she's put in chains because she's cuffed to the wall, and Ano is just like, is that really necessary? And a droid is just like, it's Viceroy Gunray's orders. So Padme responds to this by saying, "Welcome to the Separatist way, Senator. I hope it's worth it to you." And Anna's just like, "Oh, I'm sad now."
Yeah.
And this is going to be another deep tangent, but I promise this one is much more important to the nature of the episode because it has a lot of stuff that I really enjoy with it. The Phantom Menace informs us to not a great extent, but to some extent, that the Galactic Republic is this bloated governmental body, and it takes way too long to make a meaningful decision because it's big. I might link this in the description, but the YouTube channel Kurtzgazat, they made a video as I was they released a video as I was prepping this, and I watched it, and it was all about like the prospect of how many spacefaring civilizations could inhabit a single galaxy and how that relates to our place in the universe. It's a really cool video, and it just got me thinking more about the ethics of space travel because of the science around it. We don't need to discuss that, but yeah, I'll link it in the description. It's a good video. I'd recommend it. But yeah, going back to the Phantom Menace, the very concept of this government existing reminds me of how we view the United Nations. Because it's essentially like a galactic version of the United Nations, right? Our world has just this government. It's like a worldwide government that is meant to be made of the leaders of the countries. And that's how we kind of decide on things and make decisions. It's not really the best way that we go about doing things, but it's what we have. And when it comes to the United Nations, it's kind of considered laughable already because of just the sheer number of perspectives trying to come to a singular conclusion on the ethics of anything. Right? Like, this is literally the reason why I didn't want to... What?
This is not a geopolitical podcast, so I can't go into depth on my thoughts here.
Well, I guess the reason why I'm saying this, and I feel like there's enough legitimacy to what I'm saying, is because this is literally the reason why I didn't want to go on that tangent about the Kurtzgazat video, because I knew that we'd have different thoughts, we'd have different conversations, and if I went in detail, it'd lead to another hour of talking about space. So, like, just the very nature of so many people. We have what? Now it's like 8 billion people on our planet. And the idea of all of us coming to an agreed decision, that's just unfeasible.
I mean, okay. If I may, I feel like I've been brooding about this a little bit, and I might as well say it. So, currently, what I'm doing is I'm painting my Warhammer minis while we do this, and in Warhammer, all of humanity, all of it, is united, which is laughable normally because if the Imperium of Man, like all of humanity, is under the banner of the Imperium of Man. It is so expansive that sometimes the Imperium forgets about planets under its like rule and will just find them thousands of years later, and there are just people there, and they're like, "Hey, do you worship the God Emperor?" And they're like, "Who's the God Emperor?" And they're like, "Heretics, kill them!" Like, then again, Warhammer's a bit different than, Star Wars, but it's crazy to think that, in Warhammer, all of humanity is united, and that seems ridiculous. But then to think, okay, how about one planet being united? I mean, hey, look at us. We have a bunch of different countries, and we can't even get along. Now think about a bunch of planets trying to get along. I have a problem with a sci-fi trope called the Planet of Hats, where each planet is just the same.
Yep.
Every planet,
and that's
like,
something that's even in
uniform.
that's even in Star Wars, right? You'll have planets that are just one atmosphere, and it's just like, that's not true.
That's just so ridiculous to me. I hate it when
unless you're a gas giant.
Because okay,
Yeah.
look at it this way. What if you go to like a space like you go into space and you go to a different planet and you have this guy who you befriend this alien and you're like, "Hey, can you ask that guy for directions?" He's like, "No, I can't. I don't know his language. I don't know what he speaks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't speak uh purple alien. I only speak green alien." And you're like, "Well, how are you communicating with me?" He's like, "Well, I speak human, don't I?" It's like, "No, you speak Russian. I'm lucky that I also speak Russian, and also that it happens to be similar to Green Alien." It's I This is just a general gripe that I have with sci-fi in general when you just go to a planet and everyone just so happens to get along and everyone just so happens to be following the same world order that is also part of the galactic order. And then when someone rebels on a planet, that's seen as like, whoa, that's crazy. Like, this should be happening all the time. Planets don't get along with each other. Look at Earth. We have hundreds of countries. And uh, is there any of them that get along all the time? I mean,
No,
look at England and France. Right now, they're great. Think about a few hundred years ago, and they hated each
they
other.
hated each other.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the Hundred Years' War.
They fought for literally 100 years.
Ugh.
Well, I guess
Anyway.
as far as relating that to Star Wars goes, I can make the concession that eventually in some like civilizations, in most civilizations, world peace would be achieved. I'm even fine with like I think of Star Trek. I don't know much about Star Trek. I'd love to get into it, but they have that prime directive, which is essentially don't interfere with worlds until they are ready to enter this spacefaring age, and once they're ready, then we can discuss and say, hey, look, we're here, like you've been a part of this greater universe this whole time, so now you can be integrated to our society because you've evolved far enough. um
Right.
I'm fine with the nature of the Galactic Republic being comprised solely of systems that have created world peace. I don't know
Mhm.
how well I feel about that, but I guess I can make that concession for the sake of this discussion. But even if every planet achieved world peace in their own way, we've already been introduced to so many creatures that just have their own way of going about things. And it's just
Mhm.
that's a thing that they do. So yeah,
Oh yeah, I don't know if I explained Planet of the Hats. So the Planet of Hats is basically the idea in sci-fi that the only difference between planets is they wear a different hat. And so you have one planet and they all wear green hats. And they're all united because they wear green hats. We're the same species, we wear green hats. Then you go to a different planet and they're like, well, we wear uh, red hats, and we hate them because they have different hats than us, and we're all united because we have red hats. That's the idea of the Planet of the Hats. Is the
gotcha.
difference between the uniting factor of a planet is we're all the same species, which is great, and then the reason, the cause of difference is you wear a different hat. So that is it. Having a cultural difference in a world, like I think the closest they've gotten to that in Star Wars is like in Phantom Menace between humans and Gungans.
Mm-hmm.
That's about as close as we got to having an interplanetary difference of species
Mm.
and like culture. But
Yeah, yeah.
I have not ever had any Star Wars content that I've read or watched or listened to where the conflict is, hey, we're on this planet and a different country doesn't like what we're doing over here, and we're not getting any support from a different country. It's more like that world's attacking us and we don't getting any support from other worlds.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I will, like you said, I can make the concession that planets that are part of the Republic have achieved world peace and have evolved to the point where they have, space travel, where they have that kind of leeway. But it's just, I don't know. The concept in itself of like a unified planet without without that being stated already bothers me. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
I
that
feel
that that's
like, so since we're already getting way off, we've already gotten way off of topic with what Padme said. What did she say? She said, "Welcome to the Separatist way, Senator. I hope it's worth it to you." So let's just the whole point was to set that up so that we can get to the fact that the Galactic Republic isn't good at managing the system. So let's go to Attack of the Clones and the Rise of the Separatists. The whole point of the Confederacy of Independent Systems is it's summed up pretty well in the Wikipedia page on them. So I'm just going to read that verbatim. The Confederacy was founded from a belief of excessive taxation and corruption within the Republic's Galactic Senate, as well as a general feeling of dissatisfaction towards and neglect by the Republic-centric core worlds region of the galaxy. That's pretty much it. They're not happy with the way that things are governed, so they want to make their own system. So
the Republic sees that as rebellion and wants to fight them.
So I guess my next question is, what specifically makes the CIS the bad guys in this scenario? Because I just find it funny how, as a kid, you side so much with the Republic because that's just what you see. I mean, you just see, oh man, you're the bad guy. And hearing Newt Gunray go like, I'm coming to collect my prize. It's like, oh, you're clearly the bad guys. But then, getting into the politics of it all, it's just like, wait, no. I mean,
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I'm not gonna go in and I'm not gonna go all in and say, well, just because they're giving them food and they can run it better, that they're better.
Oh, of course. I'm
what
not
is
gonna
the
say
cost?
that. Right? Yeah.
What is the cost that you have to pay to get that?
Well, I mean,
what are they asking of you in return? Are they asking, we'll run your system pretty good. We'll give you the food you need, but what freedoms are you going to give up for us to rule you and make this work? What are you going to like? What is the cost? That's the one thing that just bothers me. I don't like. I understand. It's like, oh yeah, they can probably run it better. They don't have that huge bureaucracy that's slowing them down.
Yeah.
But the way they run it is they essentially force everyone to kind of become slaves to them instead.
Yeah. I mean, I'd need to understand a lot more about the CIS before I can give any informed take on it. But my point being is there's so much more to this than even the movies were presenting us with.
Yeah,
they presented us with enough to realize that there is another perspective that we're just not looking at.
Right, and I think the thing is, it's just, and I'd say this is also on George Lucas too. Just trying to come up with a bad guy that makes sense for the story he wants to tell, just so he can get Anakin to become Darth Vader and get to an empire. It's just it's a lot and it hurts my head and I'm tired.
You know what would be a great story for kids? You start off those first 3 seasons like Star Wars, where let's just say we don't follow Anakin or Obi-Wan or Padme. We follow a different Jedi apprentice that has been indoctrinated into the Jedi Council as they're growing up through the Clone Wars. And they and their master's trying to teach them about being a good Jedi and showing empathy and practicing all of the ways of the Jedi. And whatever senators and clones are there are pushing a completely different perspective. It's that the Separatists are bad guys, right? We have to kill them. We have to stop them. We have to beat them up, win this war. And let's just say we have a couple arcs throughout, let's just say seasons 1 and 2, in which they are forced into, it's like that Ahsoka arc where she's forced into spending time with a Separatist member. I don't remember pretty much anything about that other than the fact that they spend time together.
There.
Yeah.
Here's the that was a different arc. That was the arc that came after.
Oh.
Or like not exactly after, but it was a later arc.
Yeah.
But I remember
when I gave up on Clone Wars.
It got better from there, man. Anyways. it's
I guess my
that's
point
what I grew up.
being...
Okay, hold on. I grew up and I was like, yeah, this show is for kids, and then everybody else was saying it's not just for kids anymore, and I'm like, oh.
So what I do remember from that arc, I know exactly what you're talking about. That what I remember from that arc specifically was the conversation that Lux Monteri, the child of a separatist senator, and Ahsoka had, which was it was she was expecting something different, and he was like, okay, well, isn't this the first time you're seeing a separatist other than droids and
Mhm.
generals?
Mhm.
And she was like, well, what, isn't this the first time that you've also seen a member of the Republic other than, Padme, I guess? And they kind of had this moment of like, we don't know each other's sides.
Yeah, yeah.
The because beyond the machinations of the separatists, because in the end, the CIS is a pretty noble cause, all things considered. Like the baseline, hey, the Republic is corrupt and we don't see a way of saving it, so we want to secede, right?
Mhm.
That's not inherently evil. The fact of the matter, the reason why the separatists are evil is because the people at the top are Sith and they don't have the CIS's interests at heart. They have their own
Mhm.
master plan of turning the Republic and the CIS together into the Empire.
And believe
That's
me,
what
we will talk about that later in this episode, even because we'll
right
talk about that in the Grievous arc. But
because
yeah. My
that's
point
what
my point being just for this theoretical show that I'm making up. Like imagine we have perspectives like that shown, and this Padawan comes to the conclusion that wait a second, neither side is necessarily right or wrong, but
Mhm.
the very fact that we're so polarized on this when we're really not different at all, it's it's kind of like the nature of war, like talking a lot more about the
Mhm.
nature of war, and it could lead to, let's just say, this Padawan in seasons 3 or 4 just turns from both sides
Yeah,
and
it just goes rogue.
goes rogue and does other things. It's like what led to this whole thing in the beginning was Count Dooku turning because of the way that he viewed the political side of things. It's just,
Mhm.
and
I mean,
this whole
look at
tangent can be summed up because we went on all of that just talking about the various nuances, and now it's all summed up because Padme decided to take a polarized perspective, right? Padme,
Mhm.
Anakin, and Obi-Wan throughout this show so far, no matter what, they've been
I
characterized as people who have perspectives, as if like their perspective is absolute, unequivocally and unmistakably the truth, and that's just, there's
Clone Wars
no
is
nuance with them, and
propaganda.
that's what's very frustrating.
I know I haven't talked a lot. Can
Yeah, you're good.
my
You're good.
mind has finally decided
All right, I'm ready to hear it.
develop some thought.
All
So
right.
this is my summary of the thing we just talked about. Um, I wish there would be more nuance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wish there could have been more nuance to kind of describe how this situation happened, right? Like how the separatists formed away from the Republic.
Yeah.
And maybe more nuance is like, oh yeah, the Jedi are the good guys. That is the thing, right? They are the good guys, but we get to see, some some of them also have some things that are like they're pushing for a war, they're getting a little aggressive. They're kind of turning away from some of the stuff they say they should stand for. We get some nuance there because, some flaw stuff is interesting. We get to see some of the separatist side. Yeah, they're the bad guys. Yeah, they just kind of kill people indiscriminately. They're the bad guys that were supposed to be the bad guys of the prequel trilogy. We could also use some nuances like, oh, explain why this is such a big thing. Why are they upset with the Republic? What is the Republic doing that's antagonizing them to break away? What things are they doing that might be good? Like, are there people in the Separatists who are actually like good people and not terrible like
Uh,
people? Are
as
where is that nuance? I just wish there was more. And this show at this point, I would say, because there could be more later. At this point, is a kid show. It's very more focusing on the black and white, which is fine. But for like this series that could be a lot bigger and can have a lot more perspectives. I wish there was more, but I
Mhm.
understand
you
why
know,
we're just seeing black and white.
I will say, hold on to that hope because we do get some of it.
All right. Cool.
Right.
I will say, I'm not going to be
And
like,
I'm
no,
not
there's none
saying,
of it, but
and
it's
I
just we
don't.
have.
Yeah, I don't want to say that I don't like purely black and white stories because I do. I do like good, like just epic
Dude,
good versus
a
evil
New
stuff.
Hope. That is straight black and white, and I love
That
it.
is straight black and white, and I love it. I mean, That first original trilogy is
Mhm.
there's some gray, but there's I
It's
like the
mostly
epic
black and white, yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
Lord of the Rings, I love the epic
oh yeah,
black
really
and white
good,
stuff.
really good. Going to
Um,
see. By the way, this is around the time that the Return of the King 20th anniversary is entering theaters. I'm going to see it tonight.
yeah, you get to go see that tower
Hey.
get knocked over.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool.
Um,
I'm so
Nice. I
excited.
haven't watched those movies in so long.
Oh,
I
it's
need
so
to
good.
watch them again.
but I also like when there can if there's a chance for nuance to be added, it's cool because you get to see conflict. You know, you get to see conflicting beliefs, conflicting
Hmm.
people who are conflicted, and it adds story to the middle, especially if you're trying to like grow something out.
Yeah.
I definitely like to see that, and I think at least in the first two episodes we've seen in this first season, it's sticking to mainly like black and white kitty fare,
Well, I guess as far as black and
which
white
is
versus nuance
fine, but
goes,
it could be more.
so one of the best questions that you could ever ask yourself in order to understand a perspective is why. So let's just look at that in A New Hope because we labeled that as black and white. Why is the Empire evil? Well, the Empire is evil because they have, they've already explained they're trying to gain a stranglehold over the galaxy. They have created a weapon that can blow up planets. They are evil. The good guys, why are they good? Well, they're trying to stop the Empire from doing this. And we just explained very thoroughly why is the Republic the way that it is and why is the CIS the way that it is. And they're both, it's just much more intricate because there's so much more to talk about than just bad guys have weapon, good guys stop bad guys, right? There's just so much more. And I guess to tie everything off, is it a bad thing that Padme holds this perspective? No, absolutely
No.
not. She can hold this perspective. Is it a bad thing that Ano holds the perspective that he does? Absolutely not. But in order to understand their perspective and recognize why they believe what they believe, you need to understand the stakes of the world, which is the whole point of why we went on this tangent.
Indeed.
Yeah, I guess I have a gripe over the fact that Padme is not really exploring the depth of the matter, but it's not a problem for Padme to not hold it. I can be very dense when it comes to the things that I believe sometimes. I try not to be, but I can be. And
Um,
Ano, it seems like he's trying to we don't even know what his stake in all this is. He just wants his people to have food.
Hmm. And I mean, hey, he is a Republic senator. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is a big turn for him.
Yeah.
So to have that nuance present at all, I think, like, it's not much. Him as a character is there. There's a hint of it, I guess. It's not developed very far. Um, because we just see him as like, I'm turning to he has a different perspective than what he used to have, that is caused from like need, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's a good step, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think honestly,
um,
that's the majority of what I wanted to say about this episode. Like, we can go through the rest of this very quickly from here on out. There's like one more thing that I want to talk about. There's a couple things, but I mean, we'll fly through the rest of this. I'll just lay out the events as they happen because that's how I have them set up as screenshots. Jar Jar, he decides, he's gonna help by impersonating a Jedi. I don't know where that image is. It's a little later, but oh, I guess I missed the whole crab droid part. Yeah, there's a crab droid. He shows up. He ends up Jar Jar. He gets on him. They fall. Jar Jar survives. And then, he lets C3PO down from the magnet. They accidentally destroy the ship. It's like, oh man, you idiot. And yes, she gets cuffed. It's like, oh, so sad. And then we have, I don't know if they were trying to allude to Darth Jar Jar, but yeah, that's just kind of what happens is like he decides to impersonate a Jedi. And so they go, and oh yeah, Newt Gunray, he shows up, and he's just like, "Here we are, let's do it." And then Didn't notice C-3PO. He's just got his hands in the air. It's like he's throwing his hands in the air. I know he's like surrendering, but I've just imagined him like going, "What
French.
the heck?" And he just throws his hands in the air. But yeah, Jar Jar.
like,
He escapes
"Man."
through a grate in the
He is-
floor.
I just got what you said, Kyle. He's French.
He's French.
Bunch of surrender
I
monkeys.
get it. I get it.
I-
But yeah,
I think
C-3PO gets kidnapped, Jar Jar hides underwater, and Padme saves herself by tricking the droids into letting her go because she's just like, "Oh, the Jedi, he saved me." And it's just like, "Oh, okay." And then this is the part where the next thing that I have to say, and we just went through like a quarter of the episode. It was very quick, but and interesting. The next thing that I find interesting, and I only really care about Anno's perspective from here, is Newt Gunray is walking and Anno's just like, "Hey, when we getting when we gonna get the supplies?" And Newt Gunray is just like, "Oh, they're not here. They haven't arrived yet. I'm sorry. Your request will be taken into consideration after Senator Amidala's execution." And he's just like, "Whoa, I didn't know that you were gonna do that. That's a war crime, dude." And Gunray's just like, "I'm in charge here, not you." And yeah, at this point, Anno completely flips sides. So
Because, yeah, what else are you supposed to do?
he's just like, "Wait a second, they're bad." Which one of two things happened with Gunray there. He was either genuinely surprised that the supplies haven't arrived yet. But because, he's got goals, he's unwavering and like, "No, Amidala has to die, and I'm in charge." Or two, he knows that there are no supplies coming, but he's pretending that there are, and he's like got a facade. Now, I'm pretty sure they were going for option two, but that kind of flies in the face of everything that the CIS stands for. And it also kind of destroys the notion of their perspective in the war. So let's work with option one. I just find that really cool to be from the perspective of someone who has grown estranged from the Republic and is beginning to side with the enemy, not even for like specific reasons or for their own personal reasons and not like the bigger things. Right? This idea of someone who has grown estranged from the Republic, they side with the enemy, and then they begin to realize the enemy is
they have the same problem.
They have the same problem, yes. I think that's such a cool concept for someone, like, because Anno is basically in the same position he was with the Republic, but the difference is at least the Republic was nice when they said your people are gonna starve.
Yep. And
just-
hey, at least the Republic didn't want to kill my friend.
Yeah,
who had
I
known
found
they were a child's.
I found that really cool, but I can almost guarantee you that the idea was that Newt Gunray was just like, "Oh, they aren't here yet." And in reality, he didn't want them to show, like they weren't going to show up at all. Like cuz it's clear what perspective they have on the separatists in this show, so
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, they arrive and they're just like, "Whoa, where's Senator Amidala?" And they're just like, "She escaped." So Jar Jar is just like, "She escaped," and he then falls as he's screaming because he climbed up.
And
the
we could
building.
have had like the Wile E. Coyote moment where he falls all the way down and we get like the little puff of smoke.
He could have stayed. Yeah, he could have. Not even been connected to the vine or anything. He just was floating in midair. He looks down and then he falls. That'd be even stupider, but yeah, he falls, a fight ensues, and Jar Jar makes his way back in the water. They drop some grenades, and then the other things happen. I don't really remember exactly. Oh yeah, he comes to the rescue with a giant worm, and then they destroy the ship, and Newt Gunray is held at gunpoint by Padme. But then Anno shows up, and he's just like, "Oh, here we go. Like, what's his choice gonna be?" But then Padme, this is where she decides to reveal She's like, Anno never meant to leave the Republic, and he truly cares for his people. And Anno agrees, and
Nah,
Newt Gunray
no
is placed
way.
under 11. Yeah, there's no way. That's not true.
I think I actually read this as a behind the scenes. I think it was either behind the scenes or in a book somewhere where she just liked him so much she just gave him an out.
Yep. That's what I assumed, was that she was lying in the hopes of making it seem that this was a plot all along. Because, like, there's no way, just from what we just discussed, Anno had his own perspective, and, like, there's a whole scene where he's talking with another Rhodian, and they're talking about what they're gonna do, right? Let's hope the Jedi's still around. When it's like, no, this wouldn't be your perspective if this was your plan the whole time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
it
it's
just
it's clearly she's giving him an out.
yeah.
I think honestly, I think that's pretty obvious. I don't think there's any room to be like,
I'm
oh, it
hoping
was?
so.
Huh?
I'm really hoping so, because that threw me for a loop when I first heard it. I was like, there's no way.
I think I literally do not see any other option than that was her giving him that. If it isn't, and that was the plan the whole time, I have lost all faith in
If it
that
was, then that whole idea that it was all faked for the sake of tricking Newt Gunray, that's just lame. I'm sorry, I just find that lame. I guess it can work, but I don't like it. One of them led to a massive tangent of us just talking about the nature of
All it's space
all of
politics.
this, yeah. Whereas the other one is, they tricked him.
It broke.
Good job.
How do you know? It broke.
It broke.
Hey, it's Daniel. You said the same thing.
We have the same reference locked and loaded.
Funny. Anyways, the Republic, they show up, and I don't know why I chose this screenshot, but that's Palpatine. His face is covered up by a gun. The Republic, they detain Newt Gunray, and Palpatine, he's like, hey, where the supplies? They're already on their way. And everyone's happy. So, yeah, that's pretty much the end of the episode. Everything is good, and the Separatists are gonna die now. Everyone's gonna die. Anyways, Cloak of Darkness, that's our next
dying.
one. Title card, ignore your instincts at your peril. I guess that's fine. That's not bad. They at least put a little more effort into it than into, this being the theme than in other ones. Oh, and there's the change. We'll talk about that in a second, because that's right at the start of the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one, it takes place with a bit of a time jump. Newt Gunray is now on a Republic frigate that's making its way to a Venator. Master Luminara Unduli and Ahsoka Tano, they're both dispatched to escort him to Coruscant to face trials for his crimes. And my first thought there is, why these two? Because,
yeah.
Why not Anakin and Ahsoka, or what about Luminara and her Padawan Barriss Offee?
That would be fun.
Yeah, I get the narrative purpose. It's to show us a different side of Ahsoka that wouldn't have been brought out from Anakin. But Luminara is her own master that has.
I don't think
is Luminara teaching her how to be a woman. What's going on?
Mother figure time. Okay. I might be wrong.
Ahsoka, you're having your first period. Let's talk about it.
Hey,
jeez, what?
Okay, no. I might be wrong, but I don't think that Barriss is a Padawan yet, because she's first introduced in the Geonosis arc, and I don't think she is
she's in Attack of the Clones, ain't she?
Wait, is she? Hold on. What? Huh? Maybe.
Well,
hold
while
on.
you look that up, let's just continue. They're here. This is how the episode works. We're doing it. So, Newt Gunray. He tries to bribe Clone Commander Gree.
There goes that argument. She sure is. I don't know.
Oh, no.
Never mind.
Well, all right then. Anyways, not Barriss. Newt Gunray tries to bribe Clone Commander Gree, and instead, the commander opts to put handcuffs on him. And
What
this is
I
Commander
love
Gree.
sass. The sass is unparalleled.
Yeah, so Gree was at the very end of the last episode. He's showed up with all the other clones, but yeah, if you weren't paying attention, like I wasn't, it wasn't until Daniel informed me like an hour and a half ago that Gree is in that episode. But yeah,
he has his helmet on, and then this is him with his helmet off. Please note the double mohawk.
I noticed that, and I was just like, hey, I know this only because Daniel said it in previous episodes, but he's got the double mohawk that symbolizes respect.
Indeed.
Nice.
Boy, don't you love having freaking clone knowledge?
This is why we assess these episodes as in detail as we do, because it's like now we know things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Ahsoka, that we cut back to Ahsoka and Luminara because we need a lot of time with them. Ahsoka comments on how boring the trip has been, and the frigate docks inside the Venator. And this is when
Boy,
we
be
meet
careful what you wish for.
we meet Captain Argaius. He
What a
is
hair choice.
he's the
I was
captain.
about to say that. Oh my
This is
goodness,
very
that hair.
interesting.
It's his cut is insane. Shout out to his barber dog.
I don't have a lot of his hair in this episode, like him with his helmet off, but yeah, this is an interesting one. But yeah, Captain Argaius, he's captain of the Senate Commandos, and they're not clones.
Nope.
They're essentially the security forces of the Senate. They're tasked with protecting senators and any important individuals related to the Senate. So, of course, they're going to be here. We see them in total in the movie, which I didn't remember seeing them, but we see them in the movie, and then along with 16 Clone Wars episodes. The thing is, they're not in the prequels. We don't see them at all in the prequel, or at least as far as I remember. It didn't say in the Wikipedia article if they were there.
We actually see a really weird version of them in Phantom Menace.
Okay.
Let me pull that up. They don't have armor. They have like weird robes, which is
Gotcha.
reminiscent of like the Imperial Royal Guards, which
Okay.
I think is
Right.
Well, I think this is, even if this is a new thing for the Star Wars canon, I think it's good. I just wish it was always there. But it's definitely a good addition. But yeah, while discussing the Senate Commandos with Luminara, Ahsoka, she calls Newt Gunray a money-grubbing worm. And I just want to throw that out in the open, because, yeah, that's a thing that Ahsoka does. She's dehumanizing Gunray.
As one does.
But yeah,
Obviously.
Luminara says, "Don't let your overconfidence get the best of you." So we cut immediately to Dooku talking with Sidious, and they're talking about the nature of Newt Gunray being kidnapped, and Dooku's just like, "Don't worry, a plan is being put into action."
I like the idea that, because we just saw Palpatine like talking with Padme, like he like hangs up on that call when he's done, and like runs down to the closet in like his room, like throws on like a cloak and then calls Dooku's like,
Oh,
"Hey,
I
we
was
have a problem."
just thinking he's sitting, because like there's the memes of Palpatine playing chess with himself. He's on
Yeah,
one
yeah,
side
he's
of the
literally-
board, he's standing in his regular robes, and then he walks to the other side of the board where the cloak has just been sitting on the chair, and he puts it on.
Yeah,
I
he
mean,
puts it on. He's like, good move.
That was memed on a lot in the Lego Star Wars
Oh,
like
yeah.
movies, where he like gets on a call and he still has his, or like he has his hood on still, and they're like, "You good? Is it cold in your office?" He's like, "What? What are you talking about?"
Well, like, I'm just imagining, where does he do these calls? I'd find it funny if he's just
In his
office, or if he goes into a closet to do his calls.
Psst, hey guys, how's the separatist war going? I mean, I'm here to do my taxes.
Of course, of course.
It's April 15th, of course.
Well, the plan for Dooku that he's putting into action is Asajj Ventress will infiltrate the ship and either free Gunray or kill him. And Sidious is just like, "What? Come on, man. She's failed us in the past." And Dooku's just like, "Don't worry, man. She's gonna win." And then
Dooku
he
hits him
tells
with a,
Ventress,
no.
yeah, he tells Ventress that she will prove her worthiness. Like he's like, you need to prove your worthiness of being my apprentice. And that just got me thinking, like, we don't really know much as far as watching this chronologically. We know practically nothing about Ventress other than a little bit of character stuff for her.
I
But
know we get to that later.
yeah,
I know
we do. But
We do.
I find that really interesting because having watched through the first half of the Tartakovsky Clone Wars, right?
Mhm.
There the we start off right then and there with her origin, and I was just like, man, I really hope that I just forgot about this in the Clone Wars, because like that whole scene of her fighting the different bounty hunters and
Gladiators.
then Dooku himself, that's just a
Yep.
cool scene, and it should have been in Clone Wars if it's not.
And it sure isn't.
Oh, it isn't? Ah, darn.
No.
Well, that's something that's a addition to Clone Wars that it should have been there.
Yes.
Mhm.
The Clone
Agreed.
Wars. I really liked that scene as a kid.
It
And
was
even still
cool.
now.
Yeah, having watched it as an adult, having never seen it, I was like, man, this makes Ventress makes so much more sense. She's just someone who wants to be. I never saw Ventress as. I just saw her as she's a person who is trained under Dooku, and that's it. Whereas she's someone who genuinely wants to be a renowned Sith, but you
Mhm.
know she just doesn't have what it takes. I find that really interesting, and that was never explained. As far as I'm aware, that wasn't explained in the Clone Wars show.
Yeah, I don't. I from what I remember, I don't think so.
Uh, well, it's cool that it's there. If you haven't seen Tartakovsky Clone Wars, I can finally say I recommend it. So,
Yeah.
or at the very least, if you like the prequels, I recommend it because it's very much a prequels thing. But
Listen, man,
It's
it's got
good.
some of my favorite clone boys in there. It's got
yeah, interesting
Commander
stuff.
Fordo and the Munilist 10
Nice.
coming from
Well,
the Clone Boy himself.
we get back onto the Venator, and our Gaius asks Commander Gree, "How's the interrogation going?" And Luminara and Ahsoka, they are interrogating. And I chose this picture because it kind of very well accentuates the perspectives going on here. Luminara, she's trying to talk him through. I don't even know if she's using the Force to.
She's like probing his mind slightly.
Yeah, it sounds like she's probing his mind, but to be fair, it's possible that she's not even using the Force here. Because,
Right. She could just be bluffing.
yeah, she's just bluffing and she's trying to get him to reveal things without, she's playing good cop here, whereas Ahsoka's gonna play bad cop, but like
A little too hard.
a little too hard, yeah. So, yeah, Luminara, she's wearing him down, and then Ahsoka grows impatient, and she pulls out her lightsaber, puts it to his throat, and she threatens to gut him like a Rokarian dirtfish unless he reveals the information.
Like, is that a war crime I hear?
I'm not sure if we've had an official Republic war crime in canon yet, but if not, then this is the first.
Let's go! Ahsoka's our first war crime committer.
Yeah, in
Yo.
regard, so just to have all our bases
This
covered.
is the first war crime I will officially put my thing behind, because if we talk about flamethrowers later, I'm going to be really upset.
Yes, well, in regard to the list of war crimes, this would fall under, let's see, when it comes to the treatment of civilians / surrendered members of armed forces, this crime states committing outrages upon personal dignity, in particular humiliating and degrading treatment. So I think there is an argument that threatening the life of a prisoner of war during the interrogation, that falls under degrading treatment.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, there are other. That was just like skimming through the list and trying to find the one that works. Which, yeah, I think that's the one. So yeah, Luminara, she's just like, Ahsoka, terror is not a weapon the Jedi use, and her only
Ahsoka,
defense,
war crime
is,
are
I
bad."
wasn't serious. I didn't mean it.
It was just a prank, bro.
I just held a lightsaber to his throat.
And threatened to kill him.
Yep.
And got him like
And
a Rokarian
Fish.
dirtworm. Or dirtfish. My
yeah.
apologies.
So I don't like that because immediately after he's like, yeah, I'll listen to negotiations. I'm ready. When it's just like, okay, so you're in a way rewarding Ahsoka for literally committing a war crime.
Let's go.
Yeah, I mean it's not that they fully reward her, but yeah, I found that a little frustrating.
I think the deal is that's kind of shows the allure of the dark side because it does get results, but you're getting it in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Because I mean, hey, look, she used her anger, which is a thing that a dark side person would do, and it did work. He is now opening up to the interrogation. However, you did it in a way that was inherently like that's not the way we go about things. So I think that is just kind of showcasing like, yeah, this is why people fall to the dark side.
All right,
Because
here's an interesting question, and this doesn't have much to do with this, but this does help in our understanding of things.
Mhm.
What is imbalance in the Force?
Well, I would say like if there's an unequal amount of you know good and bad, the light side and dark side, because an overwhelming amount of light will blind you to uh the things that are happening in the galaxy. Look at the Prime of the Republic when there's a bunch of Jedi doing a bunch of stuff. You are blinding yourself to the real terror that's going on. And then of course we see what happens when there's too much dark. I mean, look at the Empire or even the Great Sith Empire with Darth Bane. If you look at his stuff in the books, when there was so many Sith, they would just turn on each other. They couldn't keep things together because there would always be infighting. And in a way, it sometimes made them stronger because you kind of defeat everyone around you and you come out on top. But then what do you have beside you? A bunch of people who are now have grudges against you because you beat them up in training and now they have to follow your orders. Like that's why Darth Bane killed all of the Sith and rebuilt the Sith Order as just two. That's why the rule of two began. So that's an overwhelming amount of darkness is just slaughter.
So
An
I
overwhelming
guess
amount of light is complacency.
I
To
guess
be in balance.
the reason why I say this is because
Mhm.
the canon explanation by George Lucas himself is balance of the Force means the expunging of the dark side. The dark
Well,
side is what causes the imbalance. And I think that's a really stupid perspective because I feel like there should be, like you said, there should be a balance between the light and the dark. And the one thing that I agree with on the sequels, or at least one of the few things I agree with on the sequels, is that they say that the balance is an equal amount of light and dark. Now, the way that the sequels go about that is really stupid. They say that the Force just wills in new Force users of light and dark into existence. That's really stupid, but it's one of the few things I agree with on The Force Awakens is that balance would be a proper amount of light and dark. And I only ask this question because having known this, it does affect how we view the good and bad actions of Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, interesting stuff. That was a bit of a tangent, but yeah. After this, a squadron of 8 vulture droids and 3, what are they? They're like boarding ships, I think they're called.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 boarding ships.
Yeah.
They show up and they burrow
Slam
into the
Venator.
Venator. Cool concept. So the idea being that they slam into the Venator, and that will allow them to, they ram into a bigger ship fast enough to bore into the hole so that they can open up and quickly board without having to dock. That's really cool. But first off, that's just not how Force works, right? Ventress is in one of these, and she would just be jelly inside of that ship. Also, the B2s would be scrap metal. And also, as cool as the
Unless they're
concept
strapped
is,
in.
okay,
Yeah. Wear your seatbelts, kids.
look, Kyle, I need to explain G-forces. Iron Man, when he flies around and he makes a really fast turn left, that's cool. But all of his internal organs, because he's moving in a different direction so quickly, they just
Now remember,
shloom to the
this-
side and he dies.
I know, but this is the thing. It's like, does it live by our physics? I have freaking no idea.
It
anymore.
should, but it doesn't. So
Rule of cool.
yeah, it's
Rule
real
of
cool. Anyways, another reason why this doesn't work is because they forgot that Venators have shields, and the shields would be up to prevent against attacks like this.
Oh yeah, so they would if
They
that
would have
had
exploded.
happened, they would have just been flat and like pancakes.
Yeah, but ignoring that, I can ignore that because that's how the episode happens. It's a little dumb, but I can accept that.
They're just sitting in the middle of space with no shields.
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
much what they're doing. So yeah,
If
the
they
things
are,
open
then
up.
I chalk it up to Republic complacency.
I guess so. Yeah, they burrow in and it starts to open up, and a bunch of B2 super battle droids enter the ship.
Smart. They didn't send any B1s.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
I know.
They're all B2s. It would have been better if they were the what is
Magna
it?
Guards.
No, Magna Guards or
Commandos.
the
Commandos.
BXs. Yeah, the commandos. But yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna be generous and say that they have 18 super battle droids because it just makes sense for them to be 6 in each ship, and then along with Ventress. But yeah, I say generous, but they just keep showing them jump out of the ship, and I'm wondering if it's like a Minecraft spawner in the ship, and they just keep on entering.
I mean, hey, just look at Republic Commando, where you had literal. Oh my goodness, I'm getting nightmares already, and I'm not even asleep. They have there's this thing in Republic Commando in the game, where the enemies will just like drop in this giant, massive like thing, and it will just churn out battle droids. It will just like put them together and then throw them out, and you have to like run up to it and like plant an explosive and then run away and blow it up for them to stop spawning. I really want there to just be one of those in one of the pods. There's just more super battle droids coming out of this big old machine. Oh man, those were a nightmare.
Mm.
I want here, let me see if I can find a picture of one.
Well, let's just keep going as that happens because we're already an hour and a half. Luminara leaves Ahsoka, and she leaves her to guard Gunray, which Ahsoka's not too happy about. But yeah, that she just leaves. She's like, I'm gonna help fight. And then Ventress shows up, and I don't have any pictures of her showing up, but I do have the picture of her decapitating a clone.
Yep.
Ah,
Rip
man.
that guy.
Yeah, they showed
Here
this
it
in a
is.
kid's show. But yeah, I guess that's they needed to do this to show how she got the comm link to figure out so that she could talk with Argaius, because it hasn't been revealed yet that Argaius is a turncoat. I know, it's so sad.
So that I threw in some pictures in the chat. Basically, the thing would like open up, and then it would send out like 2 droids, and then
Oh,
fight
neat.
those. Man, super battle droids in Republic Commando are a nightmare.
Ugh.
You see one on the battlefield, and you're like, "Well, time to run away."
Well,
Watch those wrist rockets.
as far as the fighting goes,
It's
I'm
good
gonna
catch.
generally skip most of it, other than the lightsaber duel in the latter portion, because
Oh, yes, we have things to talk about.
yeah, we have other things to talk about than possible plot armor. So, yeah, Ventress, she's right here. She vents. Get-
She does vent.
Ventress is venting.
Sus.
It's so funny. But yeah, she enters. I think this is like the engine room. And
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a room that's very important, and there's a droid here with lights on, and she moves around. I think the droid's name is 327T or something.
He's in my character encyclopedia. Let me go grab that real fast.
Gotcha. Yeah, she's throwing the bombs around while she's dodging the sight of 327T, and I don't really know why she doesn't kill the droid. Like, that's fine, but I just find it kind of weird. Like, they definitely wanted to go for some sort of like a covert thing, but yeah, I guess that's just what happens. Yeah, and this is all happening while Luminara is fighting B2s and while Ahsoka is guarding Gunray. So, Yeah. Speaking
Tape
of,
3, 27T. He is labeled as, so he's a spunky WED-15 Treadwell droid. He maintains a number of ship systems aboard the Republic cruiser Tranquility and is assigned to patrol duty after a separatist agent boards the Jedi cruiser.
neat. All right. Well, yeah, we'll see him later in the episode, but I don't think I have any screenshots of him. Um, yeah, Ahsoka banters with Newt Gunray, and that's when Argaius tells her that the enemy has successfully been repelled. But just then, Ventress shows up. She breaks her way in through the ceiling, and Ahsoka and her call each other names. And it's like,
Whoa.
okay, yeah, they fight for a second, but not before Ahsoka. Yeah, Ahsoka explicitly states that she will be granted a merciful death.
Man, she
Ahsoka,
is just full of angst.
She is,
Ahsoka,
like,
the
angsty,
14-year-old
angst.
girl, wants to make sure that we've. Yeah, I just want to make sure that she's 14 years old and she wants to kill people.
She
You know-
she is like really out to prove herself. Like in the last episode, the last arc, she fought Grievous, and now she's fighting
Yeah.
Ventress.
Yeah.
These are two foes. I would be like, huh, I might want to think about this before I engage. No,
Yeah,
she's just like,
no.
she's like, no,
Gotta-
let's go.
Let's
I'm about
go.
to kill you.
And it ends up that she's trapped in Newt Gunray's room. He's escaped, and one thing that I do find funny is as they're fighting Newt Gunray, he's freed by Ventress, but just after he says, "Open this door and I'll buy you a planet." And I
Hey,
haven't
Winning
said
planet,
anything.
I'll buy you Hoth.
I haven't
It's
said
great
anything
skiing that
yet,
time of year.
but I don't know if that line is in character for Newt Gunray, but I find it really weird that in this episode he's basically Saturday morning cartoon villain. I feel like that's pretty out of character for him because he's usually this cowardly dude. But yeah, I found that kind of weird. I'd have to see more about Newt Gunray, and I don't really care enough about him to figure out if he was in character. So
What I will say is I really like his repeated saying of "I always liked you" or "I always had a good feeling."
oh yeah,
about
yeah,
you."
we'll talk about that.
Okay.
But
I
yeah,
really like
this
that
is when
moment.
Luminara shows up. She uses the Force to press the button on the cell, and Ahsoka, they start to fight Ventress. And they're just like, surrender, you're surrounded. And so Ventress puts her hands up in the air like she just doesn't care. And then it's revealed, oh no, she had bombs put in place, and the whole ship shakes. And in this disorientation, she escapes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Ahsoka. She wants to chase her down the elevator shaft, but Luminar is just like no, and then the elevator shoots through, and it's like, oh, you could have died there.
If you were any more reckless than you already are, oh boy.
Yeah, I think that was meant to be a way of connecting the episode to the theme, right? The ignore your instincts at your own peril. But
Mhm.
if anything, I feel like that's working contrary to the theme because if Ahsoka ignored her instincts, she would have been fine. If she followed her instincts, that's when she would have died.
Yeah.
I feel like it
Connected
should have
in
been
the
follow.
wrong way.
It should have been follow your instincts at your peril.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is fine. I guess it's all right. At least they're trying to connect the theme. But yeah,
Unlike some other episodes.
Luminara is just like, you continue to watch Gunray. I'll face the Sith, and Ahsoka's just like, no, I don't want to. No, and
I don't wanna.
yeah. So Luminara, she goes, and Ahsoka starts to complain to the Senate commandos. She's like, oh yeah, she calls Ventress a bog witch and a lowlife. And it's just like, geez, can you stop? You're 14, but stop.
She is full of angst today. She woke up and chose violence and verbal
Really,
violence
she
as
did.
well.
Yeah. So this is where the plot bounces back and forth for a moment. So I'm just gonna simply do the Luminara Ventress fight, and then once we reach the point where Ahsoka's gonna arrive, I'm gonna bounce back to the Ahsoka bits, and then we'll continue.
All right.
So Luminara, she shows up and she starts to fight Ventress, but Ventress gets the upper hand by cutting off part of a steam pipe, and it gets right in her eye.
Ouch.
So she's started off the fight by severely handicapping Luminara, which I find pretty cool. And this is cool because it makes Ventress a little more overconfident, and she goads on Luminara, which makes it clear, like, I intend to kill you, right? Like, I think she says, like, will you still be able to use the Force after I've removed your head from your neck?
Jeez.
Yeah.
There's where we should be seeing the sass, not in Ahsoka. I
Yeah,
mean, I
but,
know you're being taught by Anakin, but chill.
Yeah, but Luminara with her, she says, like, even half blinded, I still recognize the fighting styles of Count Dooku. And I like this part because she calls Ventress's fighting style unrefined, amateurish, and sloppy. And this is what sets Ventress off, right? The fact that
Mhm.
she's being essentially called a bad Sith.
Yeah.
I find that really cool, and that's very in line with Ventress's character as we know
Yeah.
it in Tartakovsky Clone Wars. So
I think it's cool too because Luminara would know Dooku's form and be like, "Oh, this is just a cheap
Yeah.
copy."
Well, and also another cool thing, because her eye is hurt. There in the animation, if you watch that shot, her eye does a little twitch.
And it's red.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
all red, and it does. Now the red stuff I'll comment on later, but I like this part because it's a cool detail from the animators. They're just like, yeah, that's what an eye would do.
When being absolutely schmeckledorfed.
Yeah. So they fight for a bit longer, and Ventress kicks Luminara off of their platform, and she cuts a bunch of steel pipes off from the ceiling, and they fall on Luminara. Interesting shot. I forgot about that. All the pipes fall down, and Ventress, she lands right there. But yeah, a pipe lands right on Luminara's leg and crushes it. So her
Owie.
leg has turned into crushed rubble from that pipe. She's not going to be walking for a while. Let's just remember that.
Yes. Let's be clear that that's what has happened.
Yes, but
No-
back on
no
the other
walking
side
is
of
for
things,
Luminara.
Ahsoka is talking with Argaius about, like, I can help, right? And he's just like, sometimes being a good soldier means doing what you think is right. That's why we're superior to droids. And then Gree is just like, he follows orders. He shouldn't leave his post, sort of thing. But Argaius
Mhm.
is just like, don't worry, this is under control. And even, because there's Gree saying it, but then even Newt Gunray chimes in, and he's just like, I'll only risk my life if I have to. And
He's
so,
like
yeah.
just wants to throw his thing in. Did we mention that New Gunray is voiced by Tom Kenny?
Oh, he is?
Oh, really?
Neat.
Yeah.
SpongeBob.
SpongeBob SquarePants.
Interesting.
El SpongeBob.
But yeah, Ahsoka leaves, she helps Luminara, and it's like, oh man. And she sees Luminara about to die at the hands of Ventress, so she uses the Force to push Ventress into one of the pipes really far away, and then she helps Luminara. And by help, of course, I mean she uses her lightsaber to cut around the pipe. So now
And-
Luminara's crushed leg has been freed because it's been separated from her body through the cauterization of a lightsaber.
Yep.
And her legs are shattered, but she can stand.
And then Luminara stands up. And also, this is a great shot to show you, her eye is just better.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. Wasn't Ventress like pushed into a pipe?
Yeah, she's pushed into a pipe, but they start to fight for a second, but because there's the two of them taking on Ventress together, she flees. And she presses a button on her comlink that she stole from the clone. And this is where Argaius gets the button. He gets a beeping on his comlink, so he immediately kills two of the Senate guards, right? And Gree is just like, oh crap, oh snap. And they begin.
It's a trap.
Yeah, they have a standoff, and Argaius gets Newt Gunray out and uses him as a human shield.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And then there's a small moment between Ahsoka and Luminara where, she calls her Ahsoka instead of Padawan, which I didn't even know she was doing in the episode, but I find it funny because she says to Ahsoka that she's never faced an adversary quite like Ventress, and it's like admitting to Ahsoka that she was right the whole time, which I don't like because I think this is the worst part of the episode because the only thing Ahsoka has done that is kind of alright was disobey direct orders.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only like the only reason why this is kind of right is because if she hadn't, Luminara would have died and then Ahsoka probably would have died too. So like
Circle of death.
the only reason why this is a good choice is because despite disobeying orders, it's leading to the best possible scenario for the two of them, which isn't something she could have known at the time. So like yeah, I guess this is a kid's show, it's fine, but I definitely hold to the perspective that people need to be held accountable to the actions that they make, regardless of the consequences. Right? Like, if you do a bad thing, but it leads to a good thing, that doesn't mean you get rewarded. It means you still get punished because you did a bad thing. But
Right. Yeah.
yeah, you just get punished less severely because it did lead to good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, like if I break traffic laws and it turns out because I broke traffic laws, I avoided T-boning another person, that doesn't mean I didn't break traffic laws. Like I should still get a ticket, just not as bad because I prevented something from happening, right?
Right.
Yeah. I've been saying this about Anakin the whole time and like he should be court-martialed, but yeah, it's no different for Ahsoka. She messed up. So I guess there's something there that Ahsoka's following Anakin's footsteps, but still. But I do find it funny that right after
Both be court-martialed.
right after Luminara says this stuff, Gree contacts her and says like, "Oh crap, Argaius, he's something that's happening," and she's like, "I've been a
It's happening."
fool." And so I find it funny because I want to interpret it as like that line as not like I've been a fool to think that there wasn't a bigger plot going on. I'd prefer to think of it like I've been a fool to think that your disobeying orders was a good thing. Like the idea that she's just insulting Ahsoka to her face. I found that every
Just
time
like,
I watch
no,
it, that's what I think.
it's all been a good thing. It's okay. Our guy says a turncoat.
You're an
stupid.
idiot! Yeah, I love it.
Oh no! What have I done?
Yeah, so they're on their way to help Argaius, but that's when Ventress attacks. She takes her opportunity attack. And they fight again.
D&D reference.
Yeah. But I think my favorite
And
part
she
about
laughs,
that fight,
like she
she's
cackles.
she is relishing the moment because she's holding them both off at the same time, and so it's like she's proving Luminara wrong that like I am worthy. So I really like that as a moment because it's like that's some character for Ventress, and we've had a little bit here and there, but I like that we're seeing her character being pushed through the fight scenes. We don't really see much of her character pushed anywhere else, so it's like this is the most we've done so far. So it's pretty cool. Let's see.
What have I done?
What have you done?
I accidentally exploded my friend's super glue.
That's not good.
Whoops.
Oh, that could be
Well,
a big problem.
hopefully
it's
that
only
gets fixed.
around the bottle. Oh, this is a terrible idea. What am I doing? Well, we're gonna put that over there and deal with it later.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, in the standoff between Argaius and Gree, Argaius reveals his intentions, and he explains that he wanted a life more than empty servitude. Oh yeah, and this is after Gree shoots the gun out of his hand, and they have a standoff between like who's gonna get the gun. And so yeah, he explains he wants a life more than empty servitude, which is something that a clone would never understand.
Ouch.
Do you guys remember that one episode, The Hidden Enemy?
I sure do.
Yeah.
Someone sure does understand, actually.
Yeah. It's like the first. It's like one of the first canonical things or the first chronological things they did. But yeah,
But
Gree
you know
gets.
what?
Hmm.
Remember that all of that was covered up.
Yeah,
It's-
he's a bad guy.
It was all his real reasons were never revealed so
Until,
that they could be
yeah.
discovered by art students. Ah!
Yes.
Oh my god.
Anyways, he goes for the gun and Gree gets the upper hand, so he punches Argaius to the ground, and that's just a great image of Argaius just falling. Um, but
Yes.
yeah, he grabs a gun, but then he's thwarted by Gunray, who hits him on the back with the gun instead of using the gun like a gun. And I know
That's
why.
just
It's because we don't want Gree to die. That's fine, but like
he has plot armor to be
he
in Revenge of the
uses
Sith.
he uses the gun as a blunt instrument rather than a projectile launcher. So
You know what?
yeah,
It's fine, I swear.
yeah. Well, then Ventress, she begins to vent again, and
Oh,
she throws a bomb at the wall because Ahsoka's chasing her, and there's the bomb. It's right there. And so we're gonna go just a little slower, just because we've been going pretty fast. Ahsoka, she jumps up, and there's a bomb right at her foot. But then, oh no, she should be dead. It's a massive explosion, and we even see the explosion
There should be shrapnel
it
embedded
goes
in
into
everybody.
the vent, and Ventress uses it to propel herself through the vent faster. And then Luminara and Ahsoka
I
are
would like to
apparently
say,
not charred. They're fine.
Ahsoka and Ventress don't wear much. They should be shredded.
They should be, but they aren't.
let's go.
Yes.
Plot armor prevails.
They should be disintegrated, but they're fine. But yeah, they're not dead, and they recover from the explosion, and Argaius and Gunray enter the frigate. And that's probably the only shot that I have to show off Argaius's lovely hair.
It's so
But
great, isn't it?
yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's got like the horns in the back that he designed. You know he puts effort into that.
Dude, that man.
How does he not have
has
hat hair? He should have hat hair.
He should have helmet hair.
Okay, well, they enter the frigate that was attached at the start of the episode, and they're just like, oh, don't worry, the ship's still in distress. We're good. And they begin to escape, and Ventress escapes too in a pod and makes it to the ship. And it's like, oh man. And
Oh man.
yeah, we're entering the end of the episode, and Argaius is just like, that was a great victory. And Newt Gunray's like, I always had a good feeling about you, Captain. And this is when Ventress shows up, and Argaius is just like, yeah, we did great. You did good too.
But
well,
I did greater.
Yeah,
I
and
was
he
so much better.
well, he says, like, that was a great plan we pulled off, and she was just I forget what he said, something about it being our plan, and Ventress is just like, our plan.
Yeah,
And he's just like,
ours.
don't worry, I'll make sure to
Your
mention you.
contributions will be noted in my report to Count Dooku.
Yep, and then Ventress
She
just
just stabs
does
him.
him dirty, stabs him right in the back, and again, kid show. Interesting that they did this, but yeah, she kills him, and
New Gunray turns it around, is like, I always had a
Is it-
good feeling about you, assassin.
Yep, and I like that as a moment for Newt Gunray. We don't have a lot with him, but I feel like that is something that Newt Gunray would do. As far as I know him in the Phantom Menace, I feel like that's in character.
Just kind of that turnaround, yeah.
Yeah. Well, back
have
on the
his own
Venator. Yeah, back on the Venator. They're debriefing with Anakin and Yoda, and Luminara and Ahsoka. They're talking about the mission and how it failed, but Luminara is just like, it might not be completely forfeit because the enemy stole a Republic ship which can be tracked. And she explains that Master Fisto's fleet is near Gunray's position, which is the tie-in for the next episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then lastly, there's a quick moment between Luminara and Ahsoka where Ahsoka says, protecting a Jedi Master is the role of a Padawan. And then Luminara responds, and teaching is usually the role of the Master. Master Skywalker should be proud. And that's the end of the episode. So, what did Ahsoka teach Luminara?
No idea.
Yeah.
No idea.
So, I mean, we got through that episode quite a bit faster than Bombad Jedi. I still liked this one a lot more because everything that I liked of Bombad Jedi is speculation on the part of Anno, whereas in this one, everything generally works out. Like the fighting is fine, the story is fine. I think everything seems to work, and I really like the character work. The only thing that I don't like is Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Just because she's rewarded for perspectives and actions that people generally see as morally wrong. And like she's consistently dehumanizing the enemy while also threatening to kill or torture them. And I don't like that in my heroes.
Yeah.
And
That's
I like it
probably-
even less when they're rewarded after holding perspectives like these.
I think she should hit up some sensitivity training.
Yep.
No.
Anyways, that is the end of that episode. We are in our final episode of the 3, and this is going to be a little bit different because this is a Grievous focused episode, and one of the 3 of us really likes General Grievous. So
Can you
I'm
guess
going
who it
to
is?
I'm going to relinquish my crown as king of this podcast and give it over to Kyle. And for this episode, he will be leading the discussion.
Woohoo! I'm in charge now.
I've just essentially given him free reign over how to do it, and I've just got the screenshots, and I'll just try and make sure that it all works together. So
Cool.
yeah, you got full range, Kyle.
Alrighty. Cool. Welcome to my podcast now. I guess.
His podcast.
And that's not to say I'm not going
Mine.
to talk. I'll definitely talk.
Oh
to
no!
point things
Yes,
out.
please
Yes.
discuss. Okay, so we're gonna start. We're now on an episode titled "The Lair of Grievous," and you're probably wondering, wait, what happened to Newt Gunray? Well, we'll get to that. So the first thing we're gonna look at is our Chinese proverb. Most powerful is he who controls his own power. And I have to say, I think this actually works.
Yeah, we watched this together actually. So I might in the edit intercut some discussion from Kyle and I because I really liked how we had a good like 20-minute discussion at the end of the episode off the cuff, and we had some really good points. Yeah, I think we came to the agreement that this is the first title card that actually like makes sense and works with the episode.
Nice. We love to see it.
You'll love to see it. You'll love to see it. You'll love it when Confucius is right. Okay.
Yes, yes,
So,
yes.
I would normally read through the intro, but it really is just the last episode. You know, Gunray has escaped, and I think we mentioned that they alerted Kit Fisto, who's nearby, where the signal the signal has gone. They're like, "Hey, could you maybe help us?" And Kit Fisto's like, "Sure." So Kit Fisto has traced the stolen ship to a remote system, hoping to recapture Gunray and return him to justice. So we start the episode with Kit Fisto entering the very desolate system of the planet Vasek over the moon Vasek 3. And Kit Fisto is voiced by Phil Lamar, who is a voice actor who does a lot of other things. I think I know him best as Green Lantern from Justice League.
Oh.
But I know he's done a
Alright.
lot of
Neat.
I know he does a lot of other stuff too.
Okay.
But yeah, this is our first time seeing Kit Fisto in the Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we saw him in the Attack of the Clones, but
Right. But
Yes.
in the series, I mean, this is the first time we've ever heard him talk.
yeah, he's pretty cool.
He's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he's entering the system. He's in a Jedi starfighter, and he has a droid named R6H5. So I guess that's a bit of a callback because R6s are now starting to get rolled out. So that's interesting.
R2s, R3s. Now we get an R6. When does it stop?
When we get to R25.
Uh,
think the like in actual all seriousness, I think the final R6 is or the final R unit is the R6 unit. So this is like the
Gotcha.
end of the line, and then they switch over to I forget the names of them, but the droids that are like Chopper, because those are like the better
Mm.
ones.
It's like when you have a fighter jet,
Yeah, the
you need
C
to upgrade to a
units.
better fighter jet. It's like when you have like an F-15 and an F-16, but you need to upgrade, so you go to F-22.
Yeah, it's like they're like iPhones in the eventually.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, because I mean it used to be Blackberries, and before that it was I forget the name of them. The ones that are like a brick, Nokia's.
Yeah, Nokia's.
Yeah, and then now it's iPhones, and who knows what the next one is going to be.
Right.
I think they're trying to bring like flip phone tablets back in, but this is essentially the droid equivalent of that.
Yes. So,
He's got the
this
Kit Fisto has the latest iPhone.
the latest model. So,
He keeps up.
he gets a call from Luminara and Ahsoka, and they're just like, "Hey, sorry we lost Gunray. It's we had those
Oopsies.
crazy antics in the last stinky." Um and he's like, "Hey, no problem. I'll take care of it. We'll get him back. No worries." And there's just like, "Oh yeah, hey, your old Padawan, Nadar Veb, and a group of clones are already down on the moon to help you out." And Kit Fisto's like, "Oh man, I haven't seen Nadar in forever. It's gonna be so good to see him."
He's
And
such a
so
chill guy.
We'll
I
have
love
such
him.
a great time together.
Yeah, he's very chill. He is very, very, very chill.
Mhm.
And so he goes down onto the planets, and he meets the team. Now, Daniel, I have
Yes.
to ask the question: do you know the clones' names?
I know one of them, which I'm changing my avatar to currently.
Already?
We have good old Commander Phil.
Commander Phil. Is he related to Uncle Phil?
He might be. Hold on. Let me. Let me. I think the other ones might be unnamed, but let me find out. Let me look.
Well, while you're looking, we'll keep moving
Ah,
here.
found
Oh,
him.
Oh, he
Okay.
got him very
So
quickly.
he got him.
there are two that look after the ships that have names, Niner and Bell. The other guy who goes with them, let me see. They were all together, and then there's just this other guy who just doesn't have a name.
Hmm.
Why?
He
This
doesn't
is
have a
so
name.
sad.
He's been around since show 1, and they still haven't given him a name.
Oh man.
I'll keep looking. You continue, and I'll
Alrighty.
if I find it.
So we get to meet Nadar Veb, who is a Mon Calamari Jedi,
Mm-hmm.
which is really cool, and he is voiced by Tom Kenny,
Let's
Yeah, another
go!
SpongeBob.
another SpongeBob, and he has just finished the trials, whatever that is, and is now a Jedi Knight. And Kit Fisto
Yeah.
congratulates him. Which is that's an interesting dynamic because I would suspect that Kit Fisto had to go fight on Geonosis and has been fighting the war since and didn't really get to see through the rest of his Padawan
Oh
stream.
yeah,
So
he might have not seen his Padawan finish the trials.
yeah, so
Kind of like how
interesting.
Qui-Gon didn't get to see Obi-Wan finish the trials or do the trials.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. The other clones are not named, so
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's okay because the rest they're mostly just cannon fodder in this episode.
yep, they sure are.
Gotcha.
So yeah, they greet each other and they're like, "Oh man, so good to see you, but we got to get to work." So they turn around and Gunray's signal is coming from inside this massive castle that is built into the side of a mountain shrouded in fog. And they're kind of thinking about how they're going to get in. Nadar's ready to cut it open with a lightsaber. The clones are ready to blow it open with grenades. And Kit Fisto just pushes a button and they walk inside.
Yep.
It's
Very
just how it be
interesting.
sometimes.
Yep, I
Yes.
guess so.
And so they walk into this really like spooky castle that's on this like literally middle of nowhere planet moon. And they hear all these monstrous like sounds inside.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just like, what the heck is going on? What is this place? What is going on right now? And they
Very
keep
dark.
going, and very dark, extremely dark, that they put on their lights.
Mhm.
And they come across Gunray's voice, and they find a chair with a few battle droids around it. And Gunray is kind of like talking to the droid, saying, "Oh, the Jedi are gonna come find me. You must protect me. It is all on you." And the droids just like kind of look out from behind the chair, and they're like, boss, boss, the Jedi's are here."
Mhm.
And so they try to go. There's like a short little fight here. Ryan, I know you noted you
Yeah,
really like the
I
banter.
like the. Oh, I just found it kind of amusing. The have you ever killed a Jedi? No, never. Me neither. It's just like that. I find it interesting the nature of droids that they can have conversations with each other, right? And they have thoughts. Whether or not they hold perspectives, that's still kind of something we don't know. But the nature of droids having thoughts and wanting to explore them, I just thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, I think their conversations are usually very funny because they're kind of just juxtapose what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, yep, they kill the droids. Short little fight, and they're like, "Now we have you, Gunray." And they turn the chair around, and surprise, surprise, Gunray is a hologram. He's not even really there. It's just the tracking beacon from inside the
Oh
ship.
no, man!
So it's like, oh man, what's going on? And as if to not make this even more mysterious, the hologram changes and shows Dooku like reclining in a chair, and he's just like, "Oh man,
He is reclined. I thought he was standing up, but yeah, you're right. He is just sitting in a chair with his hand. He's got his knees. That's funny.
yeah, he's just chilling. He's just chilling. He's chilling like a villain." And then he's like, I apologize that Gunray is not available for capture. I'm truly sorry about that, but I can offer you a different prize, perhaps." And then he disappears, and the Jedi are like, "This smells like a trap. This is a trap. Something's not right here. Something smells off." And so the rest of the castle kind of just starts to open up for them, and so they start looking around. And they get to see these statues, and these statues show this kind of alien-looking warrior. And other statues kind of have all these mechanical parts added to him, and they're just like, "Oh, some kind of guy here lives here, has all these statues built to somebody."
He just broke into this guy's house.
Yeah, literally, we just broke into some guy's house, but they're just like, it kind of looks familiar. And then they walk into another room, and in this room are an assortment of droid or cyborg parts, all accented by a row of masks that look like General Grievous.
Mm-hmm.
And so they quickly put together, "Oh crap, we just broke into General Grievous's house."
Oh man, not his house.
Oh yeah.
And
What will
so
we do?
I love
As if-
the world building there of we start off with this area that we don't really understand, and it's all creepy, right? Like this is the first like downright creepy episode. I mean,
Yeah.
I obviously I'm an adult. I wasn't really creeped out by it, but this is the
atmosphere
tone.
is
It's
different.
very very different. This is not only more serious, but it's like they're trying to be trying to be unsettling, and that's really cool.
Yes. Yes. So, and then as this not to hammer home that this is a completely like this is General Grievous's house, we jump to space, and out of hyperspace comes General Grievous and the Soulless One.
Mm-hmm.
And so before we continue, I'd like to kind of go back a little bit because I feel like this is a good spot to talk about this. We saw all those statues of this alien warrior, and that's supposed to be Grievous before he became a cyborg. So I think this is a good spot to kind of talk about Grievous's background because the show is never really going to talk about it beyond the few scenes we just had.
Mm-hmm.
So Ryan, I know you really don't know the story.
I know very very little.
Daniel, how much do you know of Grievous's origin story from Legends?
I have looked into it. I'm pretty. I don't know if I'm like I know all of it, but I'm well-ish versed.
So that's actually something that's really I do want to point out, just as far as anyone who's listening along and understanding the nature of Star Wars, I don't know everything. I know actually not much beyond what's shown to me in the stories. Whenever I describe, like, this is what the CIS is, this is the Trade Federation, this is this. Most of that, like, you've heard me mention Wikipedia a lot. That's because whenever I have a thought that I don't really understand, I go to Wikipedia and or just as far as when it comes to the prep work. But yeah, sometimes I'll just try and figure it out myself. I'll try and think through, like when I was discussing the Trade Federation and the Banking Clan, that was just me kind of working off of their names. But like yeah, because I didn't do any prep for this. This was Kyle's episode. I know pretty much nothing. I would have explored this, but I'm glad that I didn't because I'm excited to hear it.
Yes. So, the Clone Wars never goes over Grievous's origin. Episode 3 never goes over Grievous's origin. In the Legends, the origin comes from a comic that was written around the time to coincide with Episode 3's release. And so it kind of goes something like this. Grievous is a Kaleesh, which are these reptilian, kind of tribalistic, this tribalistic race that lives on the planet Kaylee, out in the far reaches of the Outer Rim. And Grievous, I can't pronounce this name correctly. His original name is something like Kymian or Kyman or something like that.
If it's Kyman, that's really funny because that is really close to a Spanish word meaning like alligator.
Oh,
Okay.
he's
So
reptilian. That would kind of make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he is a member of this race. He is he's kind of like a warrior / warlord among his people. And his people are at war with this insectoid race called the Huck. And the Huck are like this very hyper aggressive, like we invade other planets and colonize them and kind of force the inhabitants of this planet into slavery. And so they're trying to colonize Kaylee, and they are like murdering and going to war with Kaylee. And so Grievous is fighting back, and Grievous meets during the course of these wars, Grievous meets a female Kaleesh. I think her name is Rondaru. I believe that's her name. But they essentially they fall in love. He's the yin to her yang. They like fight together. Like they're like a force to be reckoned with on the battlefield. Like they are deeply connected to one another through these wars. Until one day, one battle, they are separated in combat, and the Huck brutally kill and essentially like rip apart Rondaru, and Grievous loses it, kills like a bunch of them, and like falls into like this really deep depression. And he like tries to look for religious answers.
What a simp.
What a simp. He tries to find all these answers to why this happened, because he felt like they were destined to be together forever. And he doesn't find any answers. And so he feels like, the only way he can, properly get any retribution is to kill as many Huck as possible. And he changes his name here. He changes his name to Grievous at this point because he feels he is destined to grieve for her for all eternity. And I was like, oh,
Edgy.
He's very
that's
edgy.
a bit edgy, yeah.
A bit edgy. And so he leads his people essentially in not only kicking the Huck off this planet, but they start to go over and free all these other planets that the Huck have captured. And the Huck go to the Republic, and they're like, help, this aggressive Kaleesh people, they're attacking us, they're doing all this stuff. And so the Republic send the Jedi, and the Jedi decide, these Kaleesh are aggressive, we're gonna side with the Huck. And so the Jedi essentially force the Kaleesh back to their own planet and put this like unpayable debt upon them, and essentially put all these trade embargoes on Kali, to the point where they are forced into like this insane amount of poverty as like, payment for you started this war or whatever. This is now you have to pay for it.
Even though they didn't.
They didn't. Even though they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so Grievous like is now even more like wrecked of a person, because not only has he lost in these wars, like he lost his one love, he didn't really get any retribution for her death, and now his people are like in poverty because the Jedi decided that the Huck were the bad guys.
So
And
let me just guess what happens from here on out. He ends up becoming very, very estranged. He goes back with his friends and he starts eating and playing Fortnite and he becomes Fat Grievous.
No,
Okay.
absolutely not.
Well, Marvel had a different idea. And
Marvel
I'm
had a
just
different
gonna
idea.
say that's a far worse idea. Like this is already, it already sounds a lot better.
Right. Okay. So I'm gonna move a little fast here. So and this and to finish that up, this is why Grievous hates the Jedi, or one of the many reasons Grievous hates the Jedi, because he feels like they've wronged his people, and they've prevented him from getting any retribution for the loss of his loved one. And so during this, Grievous is approached by Sandhill of the Banking Clan, and Sandhill is like, yes, you know what? I have a proposition for you. I've heard you're a great warrior. The Banking Clan will take on the debt of your planet. We'll take that on for you. We'll help alleviate the pains of the Kaleesh. In return, I need someone to help lead our personal army of droids and enforcers, and I would like you to lead that. So Grievous agrees, and he essentially becomes the loan shark / enforcer for the Banking Clan, and he does a really good job. However, he's still really attached to his people. And around this time, the Banking Clan is starting to join up with Count Dooku. And Count Dooku and Sandhill kind of want Grievous to be the leader of their droid army, because he's a really good tactician and a really good strategist. But he's too attached to his people. In fact, the Huck attack his people again, and Grievous abandons his post and goes home to fight and protect his people. So Dooku is like, nah, I need to have this man completely and inherently beholden to me. And so he enacts this plot where Grievous is going to get on a shuttle with his men and go attack the Huck. Dooku places a bomb on the shuttle, and the shuttle blows up, kills almost everyone on it. Grievous is pretty much ripped to shreds. His limbs are pretty much cut up. His body is kind of gone. This is the part of the story I have some problems with. Through some weird way, Dooku is able to use the Force to keep Grievous alive until they can get him to a medical center.
Mm-hmm.
And the next time Grievous wakes up, he's in this tank of fluids, and he has all these wires connecting his body, or what's left of his body. He really doesn't have much left. And Sandhill is there, and Sandhill's like, I'm so glad we found you. You're really lucky that we found you when we did, and we were able to preserve your body. And Grievous is like, what happened? And he's like, you see, the Jedi knew you were going to attack the Huck, and so they placed the bomb in your shuttle. And Grievous takes this. He already hates the Jedi, and he just takes it, and he's like, I hate the Jedi even more now. They killed my men. They tried to kill me. He's like, they'll never leave my people alone.
Yeah.
And so Sandhill is like, well, we can fix you. And Grievous asks, can I be fixed? And Sandhill's like, yes, we can fix you. Not only can we fix you, we'll make you better than you were before. We'll bid you this magnificent body that'll make you strong enough to challenge anyone. And Grievous is like, there's a catch, isn't there? And Sandhill's like, yes, we're starting a separatist movement, and we want you to lead our droid army. So in return for us fixing you, you are going to be beholden to us. You are going to lead our droid army. We're going to go to war with the Republic, and you're going to have to kill Jedi. And Grievous only hears the part about killing Jedi and says, okay, do it.
Okay.
And so he's rebuilt, and his only goal in life to get any retribution for his people and for his loved one is to become this mechanical monster that's strong enough to kill all the Jedi in the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes his one goal in life, is to kill all the Jedi in retribution for all the pain he has had that he blames on them.
Gotcha.
And that is his backstory.
Hmm.
And I think it's interesting. There's some flaws to it. I have some problems with it, but I think it gives him a reason to hate the Jedi. And it gives him a reason, why he is what he is and why he's beholden to the Separatists, because that question is kind of brought up several times. It's like, why are you Dooku's errand boy? Why are you just do everything he says? Why are you here? And Grievous is like, so I can kill all of you. And I think that kind of gives him a reason for that.
All right. Yeah, I'd really have to think to determine whether or not that's a, good backstory or a bad backstory. But I mean, I was engaged the whole time. It's pretty interesting. It definitely, I can see why people would like the character because of a story like that.
And what I will say, I'll bring this up. If we remember, San Hill is the man who was taught by Darth Plagueis. So
Okay, good to know.
little bits of trickery and devilry going on there.
Yes,
Neat
lots
stuff.
of stuff.
All
Lots of
right.
stuff going on. Now, here's the thing. That is Legends. That
Yeah,
is not
that's all
canon.
Legends. None of that is canon. We can only really go by if we're gonna talk about the quality of the Clone Wars. We can only go by what's in the Clone Wars. But yeah,
Right.
that's a really neat
And-
backstory.
Yes, and the creators looked at that backstory when they were going into this, and they were like, "Well, what are we gonna do?" And so they decided to kind of leave it ambiguous. They didn't really want to go in and confirm anything. They kind of wanted to leave it up to everyone's imaginations, which I think is fine. But it also kind of just like, well, we don't have anything definitive either.
Yeah,
fact, I have
that
a-
is a bit of a gripe on my part. Is like they should have explored at least some stuff a little deeper.
Yeah. In fact, I have a quote here from Dave Filoni, the creator of the Clone Wars, and he says this: I tend to think of the episode Layer of Grievous as a look more into the mind of Grievous. How you interpret the story depends largely on what backstory you like. And he kind of goes into both versions of the thing, and he's like, he kind of derides fans a little bit and says, the fans pick and choose what they want, and I guess that's okay. But we try to leave things open for them as much as possible.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I feel like that's interesting, and I feel like that's kind of what they went for here. They wanted to leave it open to interpretation, but then I think there's some other things they just don't leave up to interpretation. They go like very hard on. So I don't know.
Yeah, I do like what he says here. Because I've got the quote pulled up. Much effort goes into trying to word things or shoot things so that the existing EU can remain, if only at times from a certain point of view.
Yes.
I understand that perspective, but also if the whole point is because I mean I take it this is after Disney bought Star Wars and they had to decanonize it, right?
I think he may have
Whereas-
even said this before.
Actually,
then. I don't even
no.
know.
Well, really? Okay. Well, because
So,
like this is before this episode takes place before the decanonization
Oh yes.
Decanonization happens
in
right
2012,
after
2011, 2012ish.
it happened. I think we looked this up in our pilot series that never aired, but season 5 aired right before the EU got decanonized.
Yeah.
So the first 5 seasons, we can interpret some things with Legends content because they were still like up
Using
in the air.
Legends.
Well,
content,
it
yeah.
wasn't called Legends content
No,
at
it was
that
just
time.
the
That
ex-
was
it
just
was
the
called the
extended universe.
Extended universe.
Yeah.
Right, because they were just all written by different creators, and there was no.
So
rhyme or reason or
I
anything.
take it this quote was taken after because he calls it. Well, no, because he calls it EU and not
Legends.
not Legends. Well, does he call it Legends at all in the quote? That's just my next thought.
No. Nope. I don't.
Okay,
see
so
it at all.
yeah, that this probably, yeah. Either way, he's trying to make sure that it remains, but I guess my only thought is like it'd be really cool if they had a backstory. I don't really see what the point of not exploring a character's backstory is beyond like what if it damages the canon, but I don't see how this damages the canon in any way. It provides more context to the banking clan. It gives you more understanding of the separatists' position in the world and them wanting to, you know, have that movement against the Republic, and it gives a character that is very prominent or like very important that we don't see a lot of in the prequels. It gives him a motivation and a reason for being where he is in the prequels. I feel like that it's not even something that should be there. It's something a Grievous backstory is demanded to exist. Like you have to have it if you want Grievous to make sense in the movies.
Mhm.
Because in the movies, he's just this guy.
He just shows up. He shows up. And he's there. He's kind of this cartoony villain.
Yeah.
But this gives him a little bit more.
Hmm.
But we don't get that, and that's okay.
Yeah,
So-
it's all right, but I mean, it's something that
It's-
I
it-
wish
It
existed.
leaves a lot left to be desired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's jump back into the episode after that little bit of a tangent. So Grievous has just entered the system, and he gets a call from Count Dooku. Calls him up and is like, "Hey, bro," and he kind of just states his displeasure at his recent performance, which is understandable because the last few times we've seen Grievous in this series, he's lost.
He got beaten up by a teenager.
He did get beaten up by a teenager. Well, actually, he almost killed.
He had a
the
massive
teenager.
ship explode.
He had a massive ship explode.
Very big loss for the Separatists there.
He lost the secret listening post,
Mhm.
and he got embarrassed by a Padawan.
Yep.
And so Dooku's just kind of like setting this up, because the Jedi, Grievous doesn't know that the Jedi are in his castle at all, and so Dooku's like, we're disappointed, and Grievous responds what I think is a great quote: "You expect more dead Jedi, but all you give me to fight them is battle droids," and then he just hangs up.
Yeah,
Yep, that's
he just
Grievous.
hangs up on Dooku a lot.
He just
It's
hangs up.
Pretty,
He hangs
it's
up
pretty
on
funny.
Dooku.
It is pretty funny the lack of respect he gives to Dooku.
Shut up, mom.
And he's just like,
He's
"Man,
like-
you want me to win this war, but you can't even give me anything competent to win it with."
Dooku's just like, you need to be doing better, and Grievous is like, no.
No. And so, as Grievous is coming down to the planet, the Jedi are kind of still looking around the castle. They find his trophy room, also known as the collection, as we all know it.
Oh yes.
Which has various lightsabers he's collected, and
Various
even
fine additions.
yes, various fine editions, and even some Padawan braids, which I found he cuts the braids off the Padawans he's killed.
That is interesting, yeah. So we talked about that for a second, but now I'm actually thinking about it. He relishes the fact that he kills children. And he
Yeah.
keeps trophies of the children he's killed. That is dark.
Same. I mean, what?
Yeah, and that I think that even that's like the warlord, like warrior tribalistic thing. He collects trophies of his victories, and this is like him proving that yes, I have destroyed the Jedi. This is my proof for it, and it's very dark. It's extremely dark. Like he's like, I killed these children. Here's my proof that I did it. It's like yikes. But the Jedi are like, oh look, we have a ship coming in. It looks like Grievous' starfighter, and they're like, this may be a trap for us, but let's set a trap for Grievous. If we can get Grievous, the war could possibly be over a lot quickly. So let's do it. Let's do that. And so Grievous comes home. He walks in the door, says, "Honey, I'm home." But not really. He calls out to somebody named Gore. And there's no answer. And he kind of keeps walking and looking around. He's like, why is everything dark in here? And then all of a sudden, there's Jedi in his house.
And he's like, man, who let you into my house?
What?
Yeah,
What's happening?
You picked the wrong house, fool.
Yeah.
Man. No, please, it's me.
And so they're like, "Hi, Grievous, you should surrender. You're surrounded. You should surrender." And Grievous is like, "Nah,
No.
you should surrender."
No.
No. And so Grievous goes full attack mode, goes full forearms. I think
Dude,
this
he
is the first
straight up
time
uses a clone as a melee weapon against Kit Fisto.
he does.
That's insane.
Yeah, there's this little fight
And this is
scene
with
where-
his legs cut off. They cut off
Yeah,
his legs, yeah.
Yeah, so Grievous, let's get this straight, audience. Grievous is fighting a Jedi Master, a Jedi Knight, and how many clones do we got? 4?
4.
4.
I'm pretty
He's
sure it's
fighting.
4, yeah.
He's fighting like a small platoon here,
Mhm.
and he's handling it, and he loses his legs, and he starts fighting from the ceiling. He starts grabbing clones and throwing them, using them as weapons,
Mhm.
and he starts swinging around like George of the Jungle, which is kind of funny. George
Yeah,
of the
he's like
Jungle.
silhouetted in this picture, but there he is.
Watch out for that clone!
Oh, no.
Wham!
Wham! And he I think he kills like
He kills
it shows
two of
him
them
like
with his bare
yeah,
hands.
he kills with his bare hands without any legs. He just kills them.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets
No leg
away.
gang.
He gets away, and Nadar starts to get upset. And he starts to get like a little vengeful too. He's like, we need to kill Grievous.
We need to stop
and
him,
we need to stop him. And Fisto's like, huh, whoa. He's
My
like, last I
Padawan.
saw you weren't this intense.
My Padawan, chill.
Chill, my dude.
hmm
So we cut back to Grievous. Grievous gets into a secret room, goes in, there's like a little control pad, and he calls for the doctor. Where is the doctor? And we get a doctor droid, EVA4D, who is
He's-
hilarious.
Who is
I do
also
really
in
like him.
my character encyclopedia.
Yeah, I
Is he?
definitely like the doctor because he's just like, oh, well, if you wouldn't get hit more, then I won't have to repair you.
I like the little relationship. Like he can give Grievous sass. And
He's like
Grievous
the
can't
one
kill
guy
him.
other than Dooku that just gives him sass.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and he can't do anything about it
Yeah.
because it's like the doctor knows how to fix him.
hmm
And so, interesting note here: the Doctor is voiced by the sound editor, whose name I believe is David Accord, who works with Matthew Wood on Clone Wars, and Matthew Wood is Grievous.
Ooh.
So
Yeah, I
the
like
two guys
that it's a voice acting role for the guy that does the sound.
yeah.
Cool.
So the two sound guys each get voices, and that's cool.
And they're very
and
prominent characters. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and Accord said that he had tried to give A4D a voice that kind of sounds like comedian Paul Lind, which is interesting. If you
Oh, okay.
want to go look up Paul Lind, he kind of has this this crazy comedian voice. That's like very very snarky and very sassy.
Yeah, I
Um,
could tell the snark there.
Yeah. And so Grievous is like, "What happened to my guards?" Because there's a bunch of Magna guards hanging from the ceiling, but they're all turned off. And the Doctor's like, "They were remotely deactivated. I thought you did it." And so Grievous is like, "Huh, something's gone wrong here. This is not right." And so he activates his guards and tells them to kind of secure the area, prevent the Jedi from leaving. And
And he like
unlike
closes
most,
the door on the Jedi as they're trying to run out because the Jedi realize like, oh crap, we're in Grievous's lair. We got to get out of here.
we got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And the Magna guards are really competent at their job. The two clones out at the
Competent droid since when?
I know, right? There's two clones outside with a shuttle, and they go inside to kind of like try and call for help, but one of the Magna guards has a bazooka and kills them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those were the two other named clones, Niner and some that starts with a B.
Okay.
We get
Bill.
a very unceremonious death.
Yeah,
Yes.
just explode. Well, I mean, it was a fast death, so that's
Yeah.
better than a slow, painful death.
Right. And then the guards try to get Kit Fisto Starfighter, but R6 gets the heck out of there.
Yeah.
Barely. Gets the heck out of there. So R6 is still alive and he's still flying the fighter around.
Mm-hmm.
On
I
the
was
inside,
actually really close. It's Niner and Bell, not Niner and Bill.
Bell.
Niner and Bell. Interesting. Cool.
Okay.
So on the inside, the Jedi are trying to run around, and Grievous is watching them on cameras, kind of playing like Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, basically, that's pretty much
You
it.
know,
playing
closing
FNAF.
doors, watching Power, doing all the things you should do in that game.
Yeah.
And he opens a trap door that leads to like this pit of like molten material,
Mhm.
and one of the clones just drops right into it. It is gone.
Yeah, they both fall, but one of them is able to grapple up a lot.
Yeah,
Right,
so
so-
better.
Phil survives.
Yeah, Commander Phil survives. And Grievous, and they're just like, Grievous, we're not impressed with the pleasantries of your home. And
Yeah,
Grievous is
we're-
like, oh, but there's so much more. Gore, go get
Oh,
him.
brother,
Here,
this
meet my
place
dog.
stinks.
This place stinks.
So he sticks his dog on him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he sicks his dog on him, so he opens the
So
door.
what is
and-
gore?
We meet Gore. Gore is an animal called a rogwort.
Okay.
Oh, haven't we heard of these things before?
I've never heard of them.
Didn't someone insult someone with a rog? Or am I just crazy?
I think you're thinking of a different
Riparian
thing, 'cause-
dirtfish.
Oh
Dirtfish.
yeah,
Yeah.
the dirtfish.
Yeah.
See, there's
and so-
an R in there.
Yes. So I looked
Yeah,
up a
one
little
of
bit
them.
about. I wanted to look a little bit about rogworts. So I discovered they're native to the planets. I can't even pronounce this one. Gyotisha?
Gatisha, I think it is.
Gatisha and Mustafar.
Ooh.
And apparently, they are favorites of Kaleesh warlords and warriors. So it makes sense that Grievous has one. It has one as a pet.
Big mouth. Lots
Big
of
mouth,
teeth.
big horns, and I think he's got mechanical arms on his back.
Yeah,
He
it reminds
does.
me of because I played through. I guess I'm just constantly gonna remind everyone that I played through God of War. I'll be like that guy that did a thing and will never let it go. But it reminds me of the Minotaur that you fight in the first game, where he's just got a bunch of armor on and you got to destroy him. He reminds me of that.
I think that his little helmet that he has looks like the iron helmet from Skyrim.
Oh, I see it. I see it.
Oh, I could see that. Yes.
And also, note his helmet has the same markings that Grievous's mask does. The little like
Oh, you're
triangle.
right. I
thing.
see that. Yeah,
That's cool.
that's
cool.
Nice.
Neato. So Grievous leaves the Jedi to be slaughtered by his pet dog, and he gets pulled back by the Doctor to get repaired. And we have an interesting little exchange here that we can talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So the Doctor asks himself, "I've always wondered, why did you submit yourself to the changes?" And Grievous replies, "Improvements. I submit to no one. I chose them." And I kind of like that line.
He's lying.
He's lying. He kind of said yes in the Legends backstory. He kind of said yes, change me so I can kill Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
But it also really doesn't make any sense unless
No,
you're
no.
going by a different backstory.
He also
Yeah,
doesn't really
I
have
feel like just
Seeing as otherwise he'd just be goop.
well, just taking
Yeah.
this as what it is. I feel like there is a level of characterization there, right? I mean, he chose this at least in the as far as the Clone
Maybe in
Wars
his
is concerned.
rationale, I
Well,
chose this.
as far as the Clone Wars is concerned, right? I
Right.
mean, because the backstory, as much as I liked it, I feel like it may not be canon. So at least
Yeah.
as far as the Clone Wars is concerned. So unless something is proven, the only real information that we have for Grievous is the fact that he chose his improvements, or he sees them as
Right.
improvements, and he chose them. So I just find that really, really neat. I wish they explored it more, but that's about all we've got for actual canon characterization for him.
Yeah.
Right.
Wish there was more, but we just don't get it.
Yeah, I think we were talking, and I might put this in the edit, when we were talking in after our first watch through of it. How interesting would it be if we had a General Grievous TV show, where because here I am talking about other TV shows, but like let's just imagine he has to, rationalize the fact that he works for a guy. He has his own perspective that is not the separatist
Perspective
perspective,
of the Sith.
but he is serving the separatists. He's serving Count Dooku, who is serving a guy, being Sidious, that does not hold the perspective of the Sith. So, like, just the fact that he has to understand and accept the fact that he lives in a system where his direct superior does not hold the same perspective as him, and his direct superior's direct superior doesn't hold the same perspective either. So, like, that like we could be learning more about his backstory while intercutting it with stuff that's going on. Like that, it'd just be a good movie or like a really neat miniseries
Mm-hmm.
all about like General Grievous and the stuff that he had to deal with and the way that he accepts things. There's a
That'd be
lot
cool.
of potential. Like people say Star Wars is dead, and as far as audience perspective goes, yeah, that's kind of true. But
There's so
there's
much more that
still
could be done.
there's still so much that could be done, and we're just looking at the prequels. We could do so much with the OT. We could even do things with the sequels. Now, I don't know how much can be done because we'd have to look at it as thoroughly as we have been for Clone Wars, but like things can be done. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So, and we at the end. So to get us back on track, I really like that, and I'm glad we had that conversation. To get us back, just as Grievous is finishing up his improvements, we get a tease at what's under Grievous's mask, but we never really see it. The Doctor kind of pulls
How-
off his mask, and Grievous
how
is
cool-
howling
yeah.
in pain.
How cool is that? This idea that this creature that has caused so much death and destruction is screaming in pain, and we don't really get to see what he's screaming at, like what's causing him so much pain. I mean, obviously it's because the mask is getting ripped off, but like, what's under the mask? Like that's something, that's a question that's never been answered, even in the backstory that you said. Like I was looking up Grievous under the mask, and you never see it.
Never see it.
As,
Police's
like,
faces are always like covered up. You kind of get like when you look at them, when you look at Legends, you kind of see they look real ugly. Oh wait, hold on.
Well, and Kyle, I think you said
can-
something along the lines of like Grievous doesn't have a mouth, right? He doesn't have a jaw.
I don't think he does.
Well, I mean,
No, he
given the
has a
fact that
voice
he has a
modulator.
voice modulator, that makes sense. But like, it would be really interesting. I just want to see that. Like,
Yeah.
what is it? What does he look like under the
I
mask?
Right, I would love to see it, and I think the tease does kind of leave that to our imaginations. I do
Yeah.
kind of like that. It kind of
Yeah,
just leaves
I'm
that up to,
glad
like,
that
this
they didn't show
terrifying
it,
thing.
but it'd be really cool if they did.
Yeah,
Right,
Yeah.
the fact that they didn't, I can see how that adds to the narrative, and I'm perfectly fine with not knowing.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so while Grievous is screaming in pain, the Jedi are fighting Gore. This is a pretty intense fight. Fun little fight too. Gore is actually able to grab Phil with his tail and literally just throw him on the ground, and it kills him.
My poor boy.
Sorry, Daniel. Your clones don't get much to shine in this episode.
No, I don't really. My poor clone boys. This episode of the podcast.
I think, yeah, this
in
episode
one barely
yeah.
there. Episode 2 get knocked out by Newt Gunray
with a gun.
with a gun, and in this one, either get blown up, thrown into an incinerator, or killed by Grievous's dog.
Literally no clones survived this episode, so
Nope.
Nothing.
Man.
And so, they are Nadar and Kit Fisto are able to fight Gore.
dude, he straight up
cut
cuts
off the tail.
off Kit Fisto straight up cuts off his hands.
Hands. And Gore topples over, and then he just stabs him through the neck and kills him. It's just like
That
really
is,
brutal.
I think, as far as we're going through the chronology of Star Wars, if you were to go through everything chronologically, I think this is the most brutal event, other than maybe some stuff that Anakin did in, I mean, admittedly, Anakin committed genocide in Attack of the Clones, but for the Clone Wars, this is the most brutal thing that has happened yet.
Yes.
So far.
Yeah, so far.
So far. Yes, very extremely brutal. And Nadar kind of holds Phil's corpse, and he essentially vows to destroy Grievous. The Grievous needs to die for this. And Fisto replies, "Revenge is not the Jedi way." And Nadar says, "In this war, strength prevails. The rules have changed." And Fisto replies, "Perhaps it is you who has changed, my young Padawan."
Oh, character!
Character! At last!
Yeah, some stuff is happening.
So this really interesting juxtaposition between the Jedi trying to maintain their beliefs in the midst of this really horrifying situation.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're moving into the final phase of this episode. Grievous is fixed now. He's brand new, brand spanking new, and he's like, let's see what Gore did to the Jedi. And he turns on the camera, and Gore is dead. And we
He's
get
like,
this.
"Ugh."
We get this
He's
really
really mad,
interesting. We get this really interesting characterization. Grievous is like, Gore? He's like upset, and then he just screams and slams his keyboard. Like that
I think
was
this
his
is
pet.
the first time we've seen Grievous, like the Grievous relationship to Gore, like that is a bit of really good characterization for Grievous, because like even we see him as a bit of a monster in this episode, and even him, he has like, he cares about things, right?
I mean, that
he
was
has a pet.
from his. I mean, that was from his days as a Kaleesh, if I'm remembering right. So like, that's just yet another thing the Jedi have taken from him.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, so and then the doctor shows up, is like, "You're getting a call from Count Dooku."
Oh no.
And so Dooku calls Grievous and is kind of like, okay, this is a setup. He says this, your recent defeats at the hands of the Jedi have shaken my faith in your ability to lead the droid army. I'm sure you can understand my need to reassess your effectiveness. So Grievous is like, you let the Jedi in here. You shut off my bodyguards.
Effectively,
You
it
have
was you
caused
that
all
got
this."
Gore killed.
Yeah. And Dooku starts going off on this tangent. He's like, yes, it's time that you proved it. Grievous just hangs up on him.
Yeah.
Just hangs up on him. Is like, oop. He actually says, oops. All right, Count. I'll play your little game.
Hey,
Of
what do you
course,
think
of course.
Dooku's doing on the other line? Just like, yes, I'm here to reassess. Oh man.
He like continually is like, what on whatever ship he's on, calling Grievous or at his castle or wherever, and he's just like, oh, he hung up on me again.
Where did I go wrong?
What did I go wrong with this one? And so Grievous kind of leaves the control room with his guards to start hunting down the Jedi, and Fisto and Nadar try to sneak into it. And Fisto is able to open the door and start to go in, but Nadar wants blood. He wants Grievous's blood.
Yeah.
And so he turns to face Grievous. A4D is watching this on the security cams and separates the two by closing the door,
Yeah.
leaving Nadar all alone with Grievous and the Magna Guards.
Mm-hmm.
And so begins a fight. Nadar actually does really well against the Magna Guards, probably the best we've seen so far.
Yeah.
He dispatches them pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
But Grievous comes
well,
up.
also, the droid, he's watching and he's like, oh, where's the other Jedi?
Oh no!
Yeah.
No.
And then he gets killed.
Yeah.
Sadly, I'm sad. I like the Doctor.
Yeah, I only said that because I do want to set up, like, I just want to make sure that that detail was pointed out right before we get to Kit Fisto's watching this.
Yeah. Totally. And so Kit Fisto kills A4D and then is now watching the security camera. And Grievous is fighting.
Now he's
Nadar.
playing FNAF.
Yeah, he's playing FNAF.
Yes.
And so Grievous and Nadar are fighting, and Grievous is kind of just toying with him. It almost seems.
Mm-hmm.
Locks him with the blades, and then reaches behind his back with a third arm, pulls out a pistol, and just shoots him.
Yep.
Brutal.
Very brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And
and Kit Fisto had to watch that.
Kit Fisto watched it, and he falls back in the chair and is like just completely like distraught. Like he's been chilled this entire time, and now he's just kind of broken.
Yeah, I mean
And
that was his
Grievous-
Padawan,
Yeah, that was his Padawan that he trained. Like
and I find that really interesting
I feel
because like the nature of Kit Fisto, like we don't see a whole lot about him, but how interesting would it be to see, because this reminds me a lot of the relationship between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, except this would be a little bit further to the point where Obi-Wan would be a Jedi Master before dying, but it's like the opposite relationship. Instead of Obi-Wan watching Qui-Gon die, this would be like Qui-Gon watching Obi-Wan die. And so for Kit, like I would just really like to see more about his perspective. How does this change the way he views the war, the way he views people? It'd just be a very interesting thing. And the only reason I say that is because the very simple answer of we don't see that happen.
we don't
which
see
sucks.
that happen.
It's
we
one
get
of
another
the
good
bigger
line.
flaws of the show, in my opinion.
Yeah, sadly. Yeah, I wish we could get more of that because the Jedi and their Padawans always seem like really familial with each other. Like
Yeah, I mean,
brothers or
you see
sisters
Anakin and Ahsoka. They're like they hold like a sibling bond, basically.
Yeah, that's very much what Padawan and Master relationship is.
Mm-hmm.
And Grievous gives a really haunting line here after he kills Nadar. He looks up the camera like he knows Fisto is watching this.
Yeah.
And he screams, "I will kill you all. Do you hear me, Jedi? Do you hear me?"
Yeah.
Ugh.
Oof.
And so Fisto gets a call from R6. R6 is still alive. He's still flying around. And so
The droid's okay, but not the clone boys.
not the
of course
clone
not, of course
boys. Nobody is okay. So Fisto's like, okay, I got to get out of here. I can't stay and fight, or I'm gonna die. And so he goes out to meet R6 near the top of the castle.
not. Mhm.
And he goes out and kind of is waiting for R6 to show up, but R6 doesn't show up. Grievous has climbed up the side of the castle and is now coming up to fight, goes full forearms, and we get another fight.
So normally, I do just want to point this out. Normally, I would be like, "Oh, where did he come from? Why didn't he show up from behind?" Right? Like, I want to talk about the nature of how this happened. But this so far has been a pretty, like, I'm just gonna say it. This has been a pretty good episode. I haven't had a lot of criticisms over like how things happen. So like the idea that this happens, even if Grievous climbing up rather than coming from behind is a flaw, I'm able to concede on that and just be like, all right, that's fine because it leads to this, and we've had a lot of pretty great stuff in this episode so far that like, yeah, I can make a concession here and there.
Yeah. Yes. So they fight. Grievous goes full forearms. He's actually using Nadar's lightsaber. He's already claimed it for the collection.
Oh yeah, that's pretty crazy. I feel
So-
bad about that.
It'd be that'd be terrifying. Like you're fighting somebody who's using the weapon of somebody you viewed as a brother, and they've already claimed it. And so Fisto fights really smart here. Like fighting Grievous, I've always seen it ever since episode 3. Is like I don't even know how you do it. It is a challenge. It is a challenge because Grievous is 4 weapons at once, spinning at like the speed of light, striking you at every angle. I don't even know how you would do it.
Mm-hmm.
Fisto
Well,
does
we see
really
how
well.
he does it. He
We
breaks
see how
line
it
of
does. It
sight.
kind of breaks line of sight, jumps into the fog, doesn't give Grievous a target.
Uh-huh.
And he gets the moment he cuts. They're having a lot of banter back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
He's able to cut Nadar's lightsaber free of one of Grievous's arms,
And he
and
catches
then
it. Yeah.
he catches it, and then he's battling Grievous with 2 lightsabers.
I do like
Which I think-
the thematic weight behind the master being one with the apprentice sort of thing
Mhm.
there.
I think the shot of him activating the
Yep.
second lightsaber.
Yep, that's what I got on
so
screen.
cool.
It's really
It's
cool.
really
It's
cool.
got a
So
cool
cool.
factor, and this is like the opposite of what happened in Ambush, where it's got a cool factor, but it just doesn't make much sense. This has a cool
Mhm.
factor, and it makes sense, and it's thematically relevant. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is that kind of like fan service cool factor done right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think the way I'm reading this here, this is probably one of our better episodes that we've watched.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
I really like this episode.
Yes, very much so.
Like
Um,
I'm
so
not
the fight-
even joking when I say this is top 3.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, this is really good. So, Grievous is able to the fight still goes on, but the Magna Guards come to assist Grievous, and the fight kind of turns against Fisto, so they back him up to a
Well,
ledge.
I'd say, top 3, but I did explain this as I was getting the screenshots because, Grievous, he's got a lot of lightsabers and they're moving really fast in the fights.
Really fast.
I was going frame by frame for a moment, and the compositing on the lightsabers is just not good at points. Like there's a moment, here's it. The lightsaber compositing is Grievous's green lightsabers have that, how they have the white glare and it kind of extends when the lightsaber's moving fast.
Mm-hmm.
This glare extending is even wider than Kit Fisto.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's really funny, but yeah, that's the only big flaw that I wanted to point out, and it's not
It's
even
hard-
much of a flaw because this is pausing it on a single frame. Like it's moving
Right.
so quickly, it's not meant to be paused. So seeing it, it's
Right.
like it's like the motion blur but pushed a little further.
I gotta
Yeah.
say, with the animation quality we've seen so far, it would be really hard to animate Grievous.
Yeah, and I
Really,
feel
really
like
hard.
I'd like to see what it would be like if you animated the lightsabers without that blur, because I know that's
Mhm.
meant to push what we see with our eyes, right? Whenever we see a light move across, it's like it streaks in our eyes. I'd like to see it if you didn't do that at all in your compositing, if that would look bad or if it would look fine. Because like this is the idea of where the lightsaber is doing it, or the animators are doing the things that our eyes are supposed to do for us so that we can be more immersed. But I do wonder if our eyes would just do that if they didn't animate it that way.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. So Fisto, he's backed up against the ledge, and Grievous says, "Surrender, and I promise you will die swiftly."
Hmm.
And so Fisto lowers the lightsabers, and Grievous is like, "Oh, okay." And then R6 shows up, and Fisto jumps to the starfighter, and he gets the heck out of Dodge.
Yep.
And he's gone. So Grievous goes back inside, and Dooku is just sitting in the chair waiting for him. And he reports that he has won. And Dooku says victory over the clones and the young Jedi was expected, but to best a Jedi Master, that is truly an accomplishment worthy of recognition. And then Grievous reports the Jedi Fisto escaped. And then Dooku's like upset. He's like, so
Yeah.
there's still room for improvement. And he hangs up on Grievous, and Grievous
He's mad.
yells in fury.
Yeah. I do like that. And pushing the idea of a Grievous show, right? A story about Grievous. That'd be really cool, because this would be a big moment of like, I did everything that you wanted, and I did it to the best of my potential, and just because it wasn't executed absolutely perfectly, you're disappointed. Like,
Right.
it's
I would
like,
say
you know,
this is
a dad that demands way too much of their kids, sort of thing.
right. Right. I would say this is a battlefield victory because
Definitely.
number one, Gunray was nowhere to be found.
Yep.
Gunray was not recaptured.
Yeah, that's why I love how serious this episode is. Like, this is absolutely, from the start, a defeat on the part of the Jedi. It's just them trying to get out of there.
Yep. And Grievous has killed a clone squadron, has killed a Jedi, and has sent another one in retreat.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a victory, but there's still room for improvement, and Grievous is
and
furious.
how cool of a concept this is. We always see Jedi as the really awesome, super cool guys that just kick butt and take names. And in this one, like, they're, I guess this
They're
is the
fighting for their
closest.
lives.
This is the closest we've seen the two Jedi masters like genuinely fearing for their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like, ooh, like you know that's a writer's device that's used in a lot of things, where the guy that usually keeps things all together. It's, I mean, we kind of joked about it in Alien, right? We've got in Aliens, we've got the one Marine that's like super, you know, we do this all the time, I love this, we're just gonna have fun, and then the aliens just wreck everything, and he's just losing his crap, and he's just like, it's a game over, man, like what do we do? Just like,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, that's how we push what's going on in the scene. And I really like seeing that. I don't know if it's literally giving me chills right now just thinking of that as a concept with Jedi, right? It's cool.
Yeah, it is. Yes. So Fisto escapes. He goes back to Coruscant, and I noted in my notes that he returned Nadar's lightsaber, but he doesn't in the episode. I think I got that from the novelization of this because I read it as a kid.
I just assumed that he returned the lightsaber because he's
Right.
here. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
of
would
course he
assume
would.
did that. So he kind of reports this to Windu and Yoda, and they're just kind of like, "Whoa."
Yeah, they're just
It's
like,
like,
oh crap, well, good thing you survived.
Yeah, good thing you survived, and they're like, it's a shame that Nadar died, and Fisto's like, well, you know, his heart was in the right place, but he just had fallen kind of away.
Mm-hmm.
And Yoda ends the episode by saying, "In this war, a danger there is of losing who we are."
Yeah.
And then it ends.
And that is also just a really cool way of connecting your characters and like the plot with the theme, because you know the theme of this episode being the most powerful is he who controls his own power, right? Just the idea of not only that being just a thing, but the fact that Nadar, he's kind of losing control of his power. He probably could have beaten Grievous if he, you know, kept a level head, and he stopped, you know, focusing on his anger and allowing that to control his judgment.
Yeah, and in a way, Ryan, that is how, in Legends at least, that is how Grievous was taught to fight Jedi, was to not let them stay cool.
And you
Give
see
them
that
no
even
rest.
in the Tartakovsky you see that how he's using fear against them, right? He makes
Yeah.
such a really cool moment of him just kind of in the background. You just hear him talking, and he's just like, if you surrender now, I can grant you a merciful death, right?
I'll
Like,
grant you a
oh
warrior's
yeah, a
death.
warrior's death. Like that's cool. Overall, I thought this episode was really good.
Very good.
I don't know if it's better. I feel like it's only worse than Clone Cadets because it just doesn't have a lot of character work, right? I mean, we've got big
Yeah.
stuff with Grievous, we've got big stuff with Kit Fisto, but the absolute shame of it is that first off, we don't get more with either of
Yeah.
them, even though this is
Yeah.
something that we absolutely like could have explored. We could have explored
We
like
could have.
a much deeper story on Kit Fisto or on Grievous, but I think Kyle, you said that this is the last thing we see Grievous do in the season.
This is the last time we're going to see General Grievous until season 2.
That sucks.
I would have loved to see like if they had tried to redo the Battle of Hypori from the Clone Wars, it would have been cool because that's a really good introduction for Grievous. But
Yeah.
we have it. It's 2D.
Yeah,
It's okay.
definitely.
But we'll see Grievous again for like 2 episodes in season 2, and then he's kind of sporadically placed. They kind of changed the focus on like one-shot bad guys or Dooku or Ventress or
We
Right.
still have to
get to
meet
Darth-
Cad Bane.
We'll get to Darth Maul and Cad Bane.
Yeah, this
and
this
Darth
show is
Maul.
the introduction to Cad Bane. It's because we don't have Dirge.
Yeah, we don't
Yeah.
have Dirge.
All right, well that'll be neat.
Oh.
Well,
Well, audience.
overall impressions of this arc, I feel like we should do. And I guess yeah, sorry.
Can I go first? I was gonna
Yeah,
ask
no problem.
Kyle.
We'll do right to left this time.
Okay. I think there are some good parts in this arc. I think there are some bad parts in this arc. I think it starts really, really weakly. It gets a little better, and then it gets very good, I would say. The last episode doesn't even feel like it's part of the same arc. It kind of subverts expectations if you go into it blind. Like you're expecting it to be about Nute Gunray, but it's not. It's about Grievous.
Mhm.
In that way, I think that's a really cool like change of expectations. But the rest of it kind of leaves a lot to be desired. Like the Jar Jar episode is just the Jar Jar episode. And then we get an okay episode in Cloak of Darkness, but there's a lot of stuff in there. I think Luminara should have crutches, but that's just me. But overall, I think it's if I was to take them all at a like as one arc, I would say it's just okay. It's not the arc really doesn't go anywhere except to the layer of Grievous, where I think it's really, really good. But yeah,
I've got
Alright.
a very similar perspective to Kyle, but I would take that. I feel like I'd kind of take it each of his points a little further, right? I
Okay.
would say that the Nute Gunray arc, I would consider this overall, even though it has a really good episode in it, I'd consider this a bad arc. And the reason why is because yeah, we have very little connective tissue, right?
Yeah.
We barely see Commander Gree to the point where it had to be pointed out to me that he was in the first episode because he just
Right.
has such a small role. And then we connect that to episode 2, and then we have like one line of dialogue to connect episodes 2 and 3 together. So it's like this is supposed to be all about Nute Gunray, but yeah, it feels like 3 separate episodes. I guess if we're looking at overall plot, yeah, he gets captured and then he escapes, but it's like you tried to tell one big story with 3 smaller stories and you didn't really try to connect the stories together beyond like telling the big one. As far as the Bombad Jedi goes, there's a lot of really cool stuff in it. I really like a lot of the stuff that they do. The problem is that it's shrouded in everything to do. I don't want to just say everything to do with Jar Jar, but it's surrounded by a lot of really stupid writing, and the problem with that is like I don't even think that the good writing in that we talked about with the world building of the Republic and the CIS, like I don't even think that that was intentional. I don't even know
Mhm.
how it snuck its way in there. Like that just kind of blew my mind. Um, and then as far as the Cloak of Darkness, I think that that one's fine, right? Like there's nothing particularly bad about it beyond like some major frustrations with Ahsoka. But even then, like Ahsoka's a naive girl that's being thrust into a war that she probably doesn't even understand yet, right? Let's be fair.
Mhm.
It wasn't until like going very deep into the Clone Wars through this in the past 2 months that I'm really starting to understand the nature, like the intricacies of the Republic versus the Separatists. This has definitely been a very helpful thing, but for a 14-year-old, that's just not going to be the case. So for
Mhm.
Ahsoka and for
Mhm.
Padme, it's easy to be polarizing. But then we get Lair of Grievous, and that's like, man, you put so much effort into that one. That was really cool, and
Really good one.
I don't think it's better. Like I said, I don't think it's better than Rookies or Clone Cadets because it just doesn't have as much character work, and that character work isn't expanded upon. But yeah, it's really good. So if I were to rate these three, I'd probably put Lair of Grievous above most of the episodes that we've seen, and then
Mhm.
it'd probably be the same for Cloak of Darkness. It'd be higher, but it'd be, it's probably
What is
around the
your?
middle range. And
You
then
said that Lair of Grievous was top three. What is your top three at the moment?
currently, it's probably now. I don't have a specific list, but I was initially saying Clone Cadets high up there, like in high B, low A tier, whereas
Hmm.
Rookies is low B, high C tier.
Okay.
But now I'm thinking Lair of Grievous as an episode, it's probably around where Rookies is. So I'll put it up in, high B, low A tier. But
Right.
I definitely like as far as exploring further, I'll put it below Rookies because we don't explore Grievous pretty much at all after this. And so it feels like a bunch of wasted potential.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That is the biggest flaw with that whole episode. It's just a
Mhm.
lot of wasted potential.
Which it's not even that the potential is wasted. Like it's there. They explored it,
Just didn't
but
act on
It's
they
it.
could have they
un.
set a lot of stuff up that they just don't continue.
Yep. That's frustrating.
What are your thoughts, Daniel?
So
There's not a lot of clone action in these episodes.
yeah, no, I can't be biased on these because there's not a lot of Clone Boy stuff going on. Um, with Bombad Jedi, it's not my favorite. It's sometimes it's kind of just funny to kind of turn your brain off and kind of look at it a little bit. My mom is a fan of Jar Jar. She likes Jar Jar. So when I was rewatching this, when I was rewatching the show with my family, she really liked Bombad Jedi because she's like, "Ooh, Jar Jar."
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I was glad. I was just glad she was having fun. Um, Cloak of Darkness. Uh, not. I don't have any huge opinions on it. I think Argaius is a really stupid haircut. That's for sure. But you guys basically said most of the stuff that I wanted to say.
Okay.
So,
I feel bad about that whenever someone goes last. It's like, oh crap. Well, everything's
yeah.
been
I
said for
mean,
me.
I mean, that's it's okay. I don't usually have much to say during this segment, anyways. So, um, but yeah, I do really like Lair of Grievous. And I will say that this was one of my favorite levels to play in
Oh
Lego
yeah,
Star Wars.
Hmm.
It was so much fun.
it was fun. I
'Cause
remember that.
lots of puzzles. Man, that was a good episode, or a good
Good level.
level. Yeah.
I am considering trying to find an old copy of Lego Star Wars 3. Unless is it
Mhm.
on Steam?
Could be.
If it is
Maybe.
we don't have to look at that up right now because I will just say because is that the end of your discussion on the episodes or
Yes. Oh,
okay.
it is
Yeah,
on Steam.
Oh, cool. Then we'll have
oh,
to
it is.
get something. See if we can do like a multiplayer of it. But
That would
I
be
will
good.
say, depending on how the edit goes, this may be our longest Clone Boys episode yet.
Oh man.
brother.
Which is,
Talking about
I will
space
just say,
politics.
I will say, it's a good thing that this is our last 3-episode arc for a little bit.
Oh, good.
Hmm.
Yeah, let me
Yeah.
just double check. We've got
Podcast
Duke
be
Gunray
for shorter
arc.
episodes.
Yep, we've got Florum arc. That's 2 episodes. The Meriden arc. The last 3-episode arc is the Ryloth arc, which is gonna be a month and a half from now. So yeah, we've just been doing 3-episode arcs. We've had quite a
Back
few
to
of them.
back.
So I'm glad that we will be done with that. If not, I guess just depending on our how we structure episodes, we might just have to cut them up into 2 episodes because that's a lot.
Yeah.
Well, if you made it this far, audience, thank you for watching. We always end our episodes on an explosion, so hey, this will be my time to do an explosion. That's
You know what?
give me something to do. I don't know.
Listen, man. They sent in the supers. Watch those wrist rockets.
You mean those ones over there?
Oh.